So I don't know. We do see. I use OBS, and I just go straight through.
And you guys use Zoom too, right?
Yeah, and then you can zoom right into YouTube, which is nice.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. We used to do Facebook Messenger into OBS because OBS will let you oh, look, it does look like we are live.
Oh, are we good?
So yeah. No,
Oh,
I think
we are.
we're on. There we're on. Okay, we're in. But there is a bit of delay, yes. Which is fine.
Yeah, I see it now catching up. All right, wonderful. All right, everybody, welcome to the very first episode of Chatting with Nuts. This is something I've been really wanting to do for a while, but I kind of wanted to get my feet in the community first and build some rapport. And I have a lot of people I'd like to talk to, but probably none more than my first guest here, which I'll let you introduce yourself, Sir Matt.
Wow. Okay. I am Matt, aka Sir Matt the Bud Knight, from many a podcast, Bend the Knee, a Song of Ice and Fire podcast, Heroes of the Horn, a Wheel of Time podcast, Box Trick, a video game podcast, The Matt and Ed Show, another comedy podcast. If there's a subject out there, we'll be talking about it.
Yeah, I mean, it is amazing how much content you put out. And Sir Matt's partner in crime is the person I had on for my first ever live stream, which wasn't really titled anything other than building a TBR. And that was Sir Ezra, which everyone in chat, I believe, was here for that. So this is the other end. And I believe Matt would say the A side of Bend the Knee and Here's the Horn. Not my words, his.
I don't know about the A side. I would say I think as and I do very equal, but
little yin yang maybe.
It is 100%. We work very, very well together. I think is the best way to put it.
Yeah. There's very few people who do content together that I think have as much chemistry as you and Ez, and that's obviously because you guys have been friends for years.
Ever. Yeah. So
I love I absolutely love the story of how you guys got into Bend the Knee, which I'll probably ask you about here in a bit. I do want to give a shout out to Lost in Discovery, saying episode 1 hype, and I want to give him a shout out for the simple fact that this is the person, which is Christian, makes wonderful content over there at Lost in Discovery. He gave me the final push to do this. One of my biggest inspirations has been Matt and Ez in all of their projects to do something on my own, like my YouTube channel. And I did it. And Christian from Lost in Discovery really pushed me and said, man, I think you do really well in the discussion realm in live streams, and kind of said, why don't you just give it a shot? Why don't you try a podcast type thing? And just to be clear, I am obviously going to be putting out reviews still weekly. So don't worry about that. This is just something in addition that I've always wanted to do. And I really enjoy the long form discussion like this. So thanks, Christian. I appreciate you. And if you haven't subbed to Lost in Discovery, you're missing out, because some of the content out there for Stormlight, First Law, now Wheel of Time is going to be excellent. Yeah, we got excited for the live streams. And Shad, how's it going? It's going well. I couldn't be much better. I mean, me and Sir Matt, our relationship started because I built Bend the Knee a website.
Yeah, man. Isn't
that wild?
Yeah, and I it's so crazy because you came in to you started listening to our podcast, at least when I remember it, was because we started out and it kind of was growing, and then season 8 happened of Game of Thrones, and it was just like explosion. And then, obviously we had some fall off after that, but then there were people who stayed and people who were like, okay, like this person's more active. And so there was the people who were before that, and the people, came, and you, from what I remember, kind of came in that sort of wave. And then, I think you had sent us a couple ravens, and then kind of like, hey, I'm down to build you guys a website, but you had already been like a patron. And so I think we'd also I think you'd done a Raven's Nest. You'd done a Raven's Nest, a couple of Raven's Nest, which is our sort of live call in. All of our patrons can come on our show and stuff. And so then Jimmy built us a website, and then, just kind of, we started messaging back and forth. Then you happened to be in Las Vegas a weekend that I happened to be in Las Vegas. My girlfriend's family, or her brother, lives there. And so we just met up, and then we switched sort of from we were using Discord before to Zoom, and now we just do these Zoom hangouts with a lot of our people and our thing, and most of it is White Claw involved.
Yes.
Except Jimmy, who is not really drinking White Claw. He's just drinking hard liquor. And then by the end, we're like,
I may have chugged some Game of Thrones scotches. It is true.
It is true. And then you've come on my video game podcast. You've been on our Bend the Knee podcast. It's great. It's awesome. It's tons of fun.
Yeah, and that's one cool thing I think about you and Ez is that you and Ez also have kind of separate things that you do.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing that Matt has done very well, and I've been a guest on there now, I think 3 times now.
Yeah, well, I need you for a 4th time. So
well, I'm always down.
I know. Yeah.
Down. And that is Super Gains Bros, aka Box Trick. It's Super Gains Bro on YouTube, but for a podcast name, it is actually Box Trick, and you can find that there. Tell us a little bit about Box Trick, Matt.
Yeah, wow. Well, if you really want to go back, so it's kind of crazy the way it worked. So actually, in all honesty, about 10 years ago, I was living in Portland, Oregon, getting ready to move back to Ohio. That's where I'm from originally. I now live back in Portland. Long story, but and I just kind of want to start a video game podcast because that's what my friends and I were talking about, and so kind of made like a website. I had no idea what I was doing. Actually, Ez wrote a couple of articles on like the website, so technically that was our first sort of entry into it. And then kind of figured out YouTube, and then once we figured out more what we were doing with actual podcasting, kind of did that. But that has always been sort of my sort of first passion. It's just grow up as a gamer, so been doing more of that. And then I just recently changed the name from Super Gains Bros. This actually used to be, which is sort of my handle on the internet, and used to be actually had a fitness sort of channel. But then YouTube algorithm, Box Trick works very well in the podcasting realm, but does not work so great on YouTube in terms of searchability. So I said, well, I'm just changing it to my handle. It'll be easier. But yeah, it's just video game stuff. Jimmy's been on a handful of times. It's really chill. We just kind of we'll pick like a topic and then just like pick a handful of games and just kind of go. So it's been a lot of oh yeah, a lot of people, they just I think given fantasy as obviously something we're both into, we talk a lot about RPGs, role-playing games, Final Fantasy, The Witcher. That seems to be where you and I think obviously tend to go in games. So there's definitely been a lot of talk about that as well.
Yeah, I mean it's funny. Our conversations on Box Trick always end up at Skyrim.
Yeah,
like,
pretty much
somehow, some way, and for good cause, I would say. And
here we go.
Hey, Jimmy.
Hey, we'll be talking a little bit about Malazan. So
this is a great question.
Just wait.
What a segue.
Great question.
Hey, Jimmy, when are you planning on starting Malazan again? I'm currently at the beginning of the last book, and this experience has been fire. I feel like I hear that more times than I don't. And to answer this question here, we're going to get into Malazan a little bit later because Sir Matt's actually done a little digging, surface level scraping. I plan on reading Malazan towards the middle of the summer. The big 2 things on my plate right now is I need to get the Realm of the Elderlings done, which I think I have like 9 more books in. And then I need to also finish up the Dark Tower series, which I believe Sir Matt's read. So I'd love to talk about that. I'm only on book 3 though, so we got to be careful about context, right? But those were the 2 series I really wanted to get out of the way before Malazan, just so I have like kind of a clear mindset of diving into that, because I know it's going to be pretty challenging in a big time sink in itself. So I would say probably middle of the summer, more than likely, maybe a little bit sooner. It depends on how fast I read through Realm of the Elderlings. So I took a break after Liveship, but I plan on going back to Hob. Yeah, I mean, Robin Hobb is absolutely blowing my mind. I'm going to save those thoughts until I finish Liveship. I'm in the last book, and I have a lot of hyperbolic statements to make about Robin Hobb in my next discussion about her. But so we were kind of talking about, how you got into content creation, or at least, kind of giving you a little bit of an origin story. Now, what I'm really interested in, I think a lot of people here would be interested in, you're really into a lot of fandoms, obviously, by the content that you make. You're very passionate. Now, my question is, when did you what was your journey into fantasy and sci-fi?
So let me see here. So this is a good question. So First book I read that I think is that probably most people read. I mean, technically, if you want to go back, I would say, you know, before I really kind of knew that, oh, this is like considered fantasy and this is like a big, huge, you know, sort of series, was Narnia, you know, in like elementary school, read that. And I blitzed through it because I was like, it was the first book, honestly, that I had read that was sort of like that. Because, you know, you do like your class, you like whatever books you're reading as a class, like
Where the red fern grows.
Where the Red Fern Grows,
Oh.
Indian in the Cupboard, you know,
Yeah.
all that stuff. And so we had like we had to like read sort of our own whatever books, and so they had, you know, and so my teacher whatever had all the Chronicles of Narnia books, and so we read the first one, and then we read The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Technically, that's not the first one. That's like a Narnia thing, man. People really argue about what order you should read those in. But and then I was like, oh wait, there's more. And so I blitzed through the whole series. So that was really, oh yeah. So that was like my first sort of like big jump into it. Then, you know, read The Hobbit, didn't read Lord of the Rings. And I actually think even today I would struggle to read Lord of the Rings. Which I know sounds odd, but for me, I have found, as I've gotten older or whatever, I don't really do well reading, actual reading. So for me, it's all about the audiobook.
Yeah, you're big in audiobooks.
Yeah. It's just how I learn. I just learn better if it's an audiobook. And so I just do way better if it's an audiobook. So a lot of the books have to have a good audiobook to go along with it. And so for me, that's just a lot of how I absorb information, which is why the narration, the audiobook of Game of Thrones, which we'll get into, and Wheel of Time, which we'll get into, and
tremendous.
Even I'll actually say I'm only like one chapter in. I know we're gonna save it a little bit, Malazan, but the audiobook, I can tell, it's very well narrated.
Well,
so
that's encouraging.
Yeah, whoever does the narration on, again, I'm only one chapter in. Like, okay, this is something I could listen to. Now, Lord of the Rings, as I see a comment here, I've obviously watched the movies. I think it's the best trilogy ever made, and I am one of the world's biggest Star Wars fans. But I will go on record as saying it is without question the best trilogy ever. Period. But Lord of the Rings, one of my issues with it is that all of the names are way too close. I don't like it.
Okay, I mean, that's fair.
It's really my only criticism of Lord of the Rings. You have like, you know, Eowyn, Aragorn. It's like Arwen. It's like, dude, all their names start with A.
It's like George with the Targaryens.
Come on, man. Yeah, and so it's just no. I probably could. And there's more stuff in Lord of the Rings outside of the movies, but for me, the movies are just so good that I'm just always gonna go back to them. And I know there's more stuff that happens, and Tom Bombadil, and everybody loves that, and that's great.
I do love me some Tom Bomb.
Right. Yeah. And for me, I've played the games. I think, you know, the Shadow of Mordor, Shadow of War.
Those are so fun.
So good. So good. And I actually said this. I was on Ez's Lord of the Rings podcast, Up Talking Tolkien, an unexpected podcast, that I think it's really a travesty that there are not better Lord of the Rings video games. I mean, like, really, there are good ones. I mean, Shadow of Mordor, Shadow of War, like the Lego games, all the Lego games are great. There was that one where you play as, like, you get 3 characters.
Oh, War of the North, right?
War of the North, right? Yeah,
that one's actually really good.
That one was good, but I mean, it should have, like,
where is it?
Skyrim, Witcher level games.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
There are like the ones that were on like that sort of PlayStation 2 GameCube era, that were just like game versions of the movies, like those were good, but I mean, they're older. I mean, come on, we need some like new.
Yeah, I know. I agree with you. I think it's wild. I mean, I just don't see how that franchise doesn't have it. I know the Tolkien estate was very protective over those rights, and now they're pretty much open. So I was excited to hear that they announced a new Lord of the Rings game, but it's like from Gollum. It's gonna be like a stealth game with Gollum. I'm like, just give me Skyrim. Just give me.
And it's in sort of development. I did just see. Speaking of that,
This is actually
that News Corporation, which is sort of like Fox, right? Fox is kind of weird. It's kind of like split into two companies, really. They bought the publisher for Lord of the Rings, so I think they now have some sort of rights over it.
Yeah, I
which
saw that
might
as
scare
well.
a lot of people or make a lot of other people happy. I don't know.
I'm willing to see what happens because nothing they do can hurt me for
but
the original trilogy.
Yeah, but Fox doesn't seem anymore like they're really into making that kind of content. Once they sold 20th Century Fox, I think their bigger sort of focus as a company has been switching to like Fox News and like Fox Sports seems to be their bigger focus. So I think more so it just they're probably for news printing and they just happen to buy that whatever company, and so they gain that right as part of it.
I think this is interesting. A couple people in chat have said this, and it says, I think like Crystal here says, I think I miss things when I listen to audiobooks, much prefer to read myself. And I see some other people, I think Oron says this, and I actually used to feel this way, but I've like kind of gotten better, I guess, at comprehending. And I've been listening to Dark Tower on audio. By the way, narrator for Dark Tower, phenomenal.
Good.
And I have been able to put it up to like 1.8 times, so it makes me kind of focus. That's one thing I've heard, that the reason why podcasts are so much easier to digest while doing other things is because the human dialect is very quick, whereas narration audiobooks is done dramatically, so it's very slow. You can actually track a book better if you play it at a little bit of a faster speed. So that might help people out. I know that I used to struggle with it. I don't so much anymore. Another comment I wanted to point out. They said they have a Lord of the Rings MMORPG, don't they?
Well, yeah. Well, real quick, let me just say something more about audiobooks. And I know for a lot of people, I see it both ways because I think a lot of people want to read it's like people who want to read books before a movie or a show comes out because they want to craft that world in their own mind. And so I totally get how anyone could say, well, I don't want to do an audiobook, and they're better with reading because then it's never influenced, right, by sort of an outside force. And you can craft it. But I personally just do much better with audiobooks. For me at this point, I almost have to have an audiobook for it to be even any sort of read.
Certain books I can. It just depends. And the Book and the Drink, which is an amazing channel, by the way, some really good whiskey and other things on there with some good books, says audiobooks are great for rereads. I totally agree. Whereas Paul Smith says he does not sure how people can concentrate on audiobooks, which I also can understand.
It's both ways. I think it's just some people are better with one, some people are better with the other.
I'd agree with that. I like Lost Discovery's comment. I'm going to tell you why I like this comment or question. You know what they do have a Lord of the Rings MMO, right? So funny. My friend at work got busted by the firewall on the VPN for downloading the Lord of the Rings MMO yesterday.
What's it called? I think it's just Lord of the Rings Online.
Lord of the Rings Online. It is. So I'm a diehard Lord of the Rings fan. Like at least I shouldn't say there's people who are way more into it than I am, but I love it. I cherish it. I just want to be in Middle Earth. I tried it out and it's a little too late.
What we really need is a Lord of the Rings game in the style of Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, where you can just see Mordor way off in the distance and the whole thing just about the journey. That's what it is. That's what it really needs to be.
I like this. How about a Baldur's Gate style Lord of the Rings game? I would play the hell out of that. I sure would.
Yeah.
You could do something with that, even with some of the side stories, right? From like Silmarillion. Like you could easily do that.
Yeah.
I know we've kind of diverted. See, I like this though because you're on. People want to talk about video games. Like this is a different.
There's definitely going to be a little bit of shifting back and forth between games but I think that I guess because your original question was sort of like how did I get into fantasy, and so I was kind of talking about a little bit about like some of the books that I read,
right?
Read The Hobbit and stuff like that. But I mean, I think so much of what has helped me in sort of fantasy is games. Growing up playing games like Final Fantasy and playing games because you're in that medieval setting and you're in that sort of realm, right? And so it's just a natural, well, I like this, I like that. And so much about the specific type of role-playing games I like are because the story is great. And it's
absolutely. Fable comes to mind.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then another big area for me, and I'll certainly argue for this, Star Wars, because Star Wars is obviously a big, huge thing for me. Star Wars, I don't see, some people say it's sci-fi, but I don't see how you could at all think that, other than the fact that it takes place in space. Star Wars is totally fantasy. I mean,
I think it's sci fantasy is kind of the genre. People put Dune in that same kind of thing. It's like
Star Wars is really its own thing.
Yes.
It is. But if Star Wars hadn't gotten as big as it had, and it had just been stories, I mean, literally, if you take away the spaceships and give them horses and armor and swords, then the Force just becomes magic, or it's just the Force.
It's a magic.
It's no different than the power in Wheel of Time. I mean,
except the power is better.
Oh, I don't know about that.
There's a discussion.
I don't know. I don't know about the power seems to be on a world level scale, where the Force is clearly on at least a galaxy level scale.
Yeah, I know. I mean, you're definitely right. And I'll be honest. So it's actually funny. We're talking about Final Fantasy and Star Wars. I'm the opposite of you. Now, I liked RPGs and stuff. I like Fable, but I feel like I have dived more into games now that I'm a broad reader of fantasy. For instance, Final Fantasy is something I'm a late adopter to that I am loving going back and playing.
Which one are you in right now?
I am about to play Final Fantasy 10.
And you played through another one though, right?
6, 7 remake, and now I'm jumping to 10. So I also played a little bit of Final Fantasy 14. The MMO wasn't for me. But I also
you haven't started 10 yet?
No, I haven't.
You might want. I think you played 6 though.
Yes.
I think you should play 9.
You think?
Yeah, I think you should play 9.
Okay, I'll play 9. I try.
9 is more sort of medieval than 10. And so I think it would be kind of cool to get that sort of like, this is like the roots of Final Fantasy. 10 is great. 10 is great. It has a sports game mini game, which is awesome.
Well, I'm into mini games.
But 9, I think 9 is also meant 9 is also meant to be a it's like it was a tribute to the series, because it was the last game that the original team worked on.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and so it's everything in there is like a tribute to everything, and it's sort of medieval. You have a great cast of characters. It's kind of lighthearted, but yeah, it's all about the Queen Dagger, or Princess Dagger, Garnet. She changes her name to Dagger later. But it's all about like when she turns 16, she gets the power to summon all of the big powerful creatures and all of this stuff. She has like a mysterious birth, and all of this stuff. It's great. And there's like warring kingdoms.
There's tropes and all that good. I mean, I love that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, straight through. Yeah, straight through. Yeah, it does. Yeah.
We actually, some people are saying, like, they never played a role-playing game. I would definitely encourage you to. I think it expands the genre of fantasy quite a bit.
It does.
And Aaron, Final Fantasy 10 is his favorite.
Yeah, 10 is good for me. The ending is just like, it's like the whole game. If the ending were just a little better, it would be the best. It would be the best game in the series. But it's not that the ending is bad, but it's like. It's almost like Game of Thrones in that it's so good, except the ending to Final Fantasy X is more in line and better than the ending to the show Game of Thrones.
Well, I got to get to and play and have an opinion. So now
it's like watching a world-class sprinter. Just like it'd be like almost if like Usain Bolt is still like way ahead of everybody, but he kind of trips a little at the end.
It's like Michael Jordan played the NBA.
Yeah, and he scores 48 points but misses his 50th, and it's like, okay, well, he still had an amazing game, but it's like it would have just been great to have that like 50, that 50
picture perfect kind of ending.
Yeah, to get that perfect ending. Yeah, but
actually,
I was thinking, I was kind of thinking about games like if people have never played one, since I know a lot of your listeners are like fantasy book readers, people who have not gotten into them. I think sort of games that you could sort of transition easy into. Yes, Oren. Yes, the final boss. I mean, yeah, it's just like, yeah, I felt that the final boss should have just been Seymour. I'll just say that, and I'll leave it at that. I don't want to ruin anything, but no, I was thinking about some games that would be kind of, I think would be good games for people to sort of transition into.
Yeah.
So I was thinking, I think Dragon Age Origins. Have you played that? The
Yes,
first one?
I've played all the Dragon Ages. They're
Yeah.
incredible.
Yeah,
The
I think the
story
first
is
one.
amazing.
Exactly. I think the first one is one that people would jump it. It's not an incredibly difficult game to get into, but I think like, oh, you're gonna be like this, you get to play a fantasy novel.
Hey, look at that. My mother is in the chat. Hi, Mom.
Let's go.
Everyone say hello to Mother Nuts, Mama Nuts, as she's known as. So yeah, I'm not going to delve into this because we actually covered, this is a really good reason, Christian, for you to go check out the Super Games Bros YouTube or Box Trick and podcast, because he says Oblivion's better than Skyrim, and we actually had that conversation.
Yeah, we did have that.
And now, I actually agreed with you until I recently replayed Skyrim, and now I'm kind of
I don't know.
But if you want to hear more about that, go download the episode.
Yeah, exactly.
Because we had a really good conversation about it. So
yeah. Okay, well, anyway, so let's get back into the sort of real question, which was
you read The Hobbit.
Yes, read The Hobbit. Obviously, gaming was definitely a big part of it as well. Read The Hobbit. Then really, I wouldn't say I was really diving deep into fantasy until sort of just like right outside of high school. In which case, then I got into very late Harry Potter. And sort of just blitzed. I mean, blitzed through those books.
Yeah.
I read them all to get ready for the first 7th movie, right? As movie 7, which was part 1 of book 7. Then there's a movie 8, because they split that into 2. So did that, and then it was just Game of Thrones, and then I just really obviously have gotten really into A Song of Ice and Fire.
Yeah, absolutely. And I really like one of my favorite things about you and Ez starting your Bend the Knee podcast for Song of Ice and Fire is the story of you guys figuring out R+L = J.
Oh my God.
I love that story. It's really good. Now, one thing I guess I should put this out. So we're gonna be talking some A Song of Ice and Fire. We're gonna be talking about Wheel of Time. Me and Matt have both obviously read A Song of Ice and Fire, right? So
right.
I don't know how many people in chat have read it all, because there are still people out there. Hey, Heroes of the Horn, we were just talking about you. There's Ed's. But I don't necessarily want to go into a bunch of spoiler talk. And also, me and Matt have not finished. We are in book 5 of Wheel of Time together. So
yes,
I don't.
Very beginning. We just started book 5 of Wheel of Time.
Just started it. So we don't know the end of book 5. So we're going to talk pretty general. Me and Matt won't go into spoilers and stuff. But I would also ask everybody in chat to not ruin it for anybody else. And unless if somehow I get a unanimous 21 person in here says we're good, right? But specifically for Wheel of Time, no dark friends. We gotta keep it good, right? What are you talking about? N+A = J. Oh no. Oh no.
Yeah. I'll tell the story on that. So I guess maybe without spoiling stuff. So anyway, in that series, there is a pretty big theory that once you've read the series becomes pretty obvious, and is easily, of all of the theories in the series, this is kind of like fan theory number 1, which the show confirmed. It still hasn't been confirmed in the books yet, but the show basically confirmed it.
Right.
So of course, I think I got into Game of Thrones. I think season 3 had just come out, and so Ez was like, "Hey man, you got to watch this. It's really good." So I think he gave me the first season on DVD. Watched it all. I was like, "This is pretty sweet," because you get to the end. You get to the end of book 1, and then obviously that big sort of event happens that most everyone knows.
Yes.
Even people who have not read the series kind of know. Okay, well, whatever.
So major stuff goes down.
Pretty major stuff goes down. So then I watched season 2, season 3, and so then I think we're waiting for season 4 to come out. But obviously, we're up through A Dance with Dragons, and so there's like content, and we're like trying to figure this stuff out. And so that main theory, right, we're like trying to figure out, and so we're like literally just sitting around, like doing nothing. And I'm just like, I can't remember what he was doing, but I'm just like sitting there typing all this stuff. And I'm just like, this just doesn't add up, man. I'm like, this just doesn't add up. And it's like, we're like spending hours like doing nothing, just sitting around talking about this theory. And I'm just like, I don't know. This I got to figure this out. And so I sort of like piece it together in my mind. And I'm like, I say it out loud, and we're both just sitting there and we're like, oh my God. And we're like walking, like pacing around as if we've just uncovered like the most
string theory,
the most biggest theory, like something that nobody has possibly ever thought of. And then I'm just like, I like type it in, and it's literally like the one thing that everyone has been like talking about. And everyone's like, it's like the single
like,
biggest theory. It's like, duh. Yeah. And we're just like, oh, but for those handful of seconds, we feel like we uncovered, like, it's like we just found Atlantis or something. I mean,
yeah. So, that's why I love A Song of Ice and Fire. And that's, that excitement is something that you and Ez still bring to the podcast, which is Bend the Knee. Oscar, you were saying about reading the novels. I really suggest checking out Bend the Knee. It's a read along book club podcast that Sir Matt here hosts with a great guy named Sir Ez. And but there's very few series that lend itself to theory crafting the way that A Song of Ice and Fire has. No matter what people feel about it, that is certainly true. And that just idea of you and Ez sitting, in a garage, going over theories, whiteboarding it out, to me, like, that is the peak of being a fan, right? And also just enjoying some sort of entertainment medium, right? I think it's just absolutely astounding. And I love hearing that story because it gets me fired up, and it motivates me. For those who don't know, the reason why I made my YouTube channel and the reason why I kind of delved into all this is because I was looking for more fantasy that could, get my appetite, quenched for more A Song of Ice and Fire, because obviously George takes a super long time to write anything, if he ever does again, whatever. So, I went on a great journey looking for other stuff just like it. And there's a lot of stuff that's gotten really close. But I still feel like that has a special place. Probably nostalgia runs pretty deep, right? But what an amazing story. I just love that. I love hearing you two just hammering it out. It's like one of my
yeah. Well, I mean, that goes back to high school, when senior year, when Star Wars Revenge of the Sith came out, and Ez and I were just sitting around and we were just like, piecing together all of the possible like things that were gonna happen, that could happen with Star Wars. And I mean, it literally is like strings, just strings.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. And it's just always been that way. And so it'll just be, we always joke that I ask the questions that literally no one are asking. And so I'll always like make these like stupid joke questions I ask Ez. And he's just like, yeah, I mean, is anybody talking about it? And that's sort of how a lot of it goes. I'm like, has anyone asked it? Okay. Yeah. I mean, has anyone asked it?
So one thing, I'm going to put you on the spot here a little bit. Not in a bad way, but okay. I want to see if you can identify this, because when I look at, your work and your content that you create and the series that you love Star Wars, right? You love, yeah. You love Wheel of Time. You love A Song of Ice and Fire.
I'm loving Wheel of Time.
Yeah, I should say you're loving it. You're experiencing it.
But I knew that I probably would if I ever really got into it.
Yes, and that's my question. So and I know they're all fantasy, but they're all very different. Like A Song of Ice and Fire's tone and Wheel of Time's tone are totally different. And then Star Wars is even more different than those two, right? And you also were a big fan of Harry Potter. I remember you saying that. So like, you're kind of all over the place. Is there something about fantasy in general that draws you to it?
I wouldn't say it's fantasy in general. I think the common thread, and I think this extends to every sort of story I've always really liked, is that sort of, and I think all of those that you just mentioned have one very specific common trait in them. First and foremost, all of those, and this is just stories in general. This could be television, movies, whatever. I think there's sort of the pie of crafting a story, and I think it ultimately kind of goes to three places if you really want to kind of pencil it in, and that is plot, sort of world building, but world building isn't as important as character development. And I will always go with a story that has good character development over a story that has a good plot. The plot can be absolutely idiotic if the character development is there and it's all about the strong characters, then that's what I relate to with really well. Like it's rare that I'll watch something that has like, it usually doesn't exist, but like okay, a movie like Battleship. Have you ever seen it? It has Liam Neeson.
No,
okay, it's a not a good movie. It's a really bad, but the characters in it are a joke. Okay, other than Liam Neeson, who's in it for like 2 seconds, and it's whatever. But the plot is actually something that is like, well, that's actually a pretty decent plot. Like the whole plot is these guys are sending out like radio transmissions into space to see, well, what would happen? And then obviously what happens is aliens hear it and come to Earth and start destroying stuff. You know, exactly. But the plot, actually, the way they all handle it is actually like, it's actually pretty good. Like the movie itself sucks, but the plot is kind of like, this actually works. So that's like the one example I can think of in which you have a plot that sort of like makes sense. Right, but the character, but so there's tons of things where the plot is like dumb, but the character development is great, and that's what we're there for. But then I think specifically with Star Wars, Harry Potter, Game of Thrones, and Wheel of Time, is I've always really liked that sort of one guy, it feels like, versus everybody, right? Jon Snow, Rand, Harry Potter, even. Luke, Anakin.
So you like the chosen one trope is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, probably. Yeah,
that's cool. Yeah, we all have
a lot of that. A lot of that probably comes from playing video games where you're one guy who young kid finds a magical sword and we're off. I mean,
that's Arthurian tales to a T, you know. And
I love King Arthur.
That's the origins of fantasy, really, and storytelling. I think you would really enjoy Bernard Cornwell's Warlord Chronicles. It's a trilogy, and it is his version of the Arthurian tale. And I've heard it is by far the best telling of it. And he's also the same gentleman who is writing the Saxon Chronicles, which is, I think it's, or maybe it's the Saxon Stories. It's the Last Kingdom on Netflix. It's like a Viking.
Oh, okay.
So it's the same author. I think he's pretty much unanimously considered the best historical fiction author. But the Warlord Chronicles, with I think
but Arthur was real, so
duh.
Yeah.
So I heard,
people are like, hey, now
easy. I think you might want to check that out. Just off the top of my head, thinking about that, I actually have it back on the shelf there. I was hoping to read it maybe late this year. Let's see.
Lost in Discovery says Rihanna's character development.
Yeah, Christian, you're ridiculous. You're absolutely ridiculous.
It's ridiculous. But yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people, I think that's what you look for most. I mean, world building is part of it, you know. Like Wheel of Time, for example, he clearly spends a lot of time crafting the world. I think A Song of Ice and Fire does it better, in which he doesn't like specifically waste time. Like I'm not saying Robert Jordan wastes time, but it's like, it almost, to me, the difference is George R. Martin does it as he's like writing the story. Like the character will go over and pick something up or interact with the world, and he'll explain it a little bit more. Or sometimes Robert Jordan just explains it, like almost like,
I think a lot of people would
just to explain. And I think that is something that a lot of people say. Not that it's bad. It's just a different way of doing it. But if you know you're getting into a 14 book series and all of this stuff, and that's great. That's great. A lot of people look for that, though. A lot of people want to get sucked into this sort of, you know, this world that the author is creating. And so I think for some people that's great. And but me, I mean, I think most people agree character development is the reason you're there, really. If the characters you're not interested, are you going to be interested?
Yeah, so I'm a character-driven reader, which is actually Matt Brown said definitely like the Warlord Chronicles best of his work. Matt Brown also earlier said First Law better than A Song of Ice and Fire. I don't know if I can. I haven't
read it, so I don't know.
To that point, the reason why I mention it is First Law has some of the best characters in all of fiction. I mean, just
Mhm.
incredible series. I'd recommend those to anybody who's looking for good character development. But I'm much like you. I can read a book with a very mundane plot, or maybe it doesn't move as fast. Robin Hobb's Farseer trilogy. Well, I actually do think the plot's very good. It's absolutely like a character-driven story, and
Mhm.
I love it. I get
Yeah.
sucked in more to a character than I do to a plot, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think most people do. And that's not to say you just can't have a plot. Like you have to have
I mean,
some.
it's nice if you get both, right?
Yeah, it is. It is. But I mean, I think most stories will survive if it's 75 to 25. I think once you start getting past that, like for example, for me, it's a show, so it's not a fantasy novel, but like The Walking Dead, great character development, world building, but the plot is like you never really, why did all this happen? Like what other than just surviving? What's the point? And I fell out of it because you needed more. You needed more of that
That show
that
did not grab
backstory
me.
as to what's going on. And I was like,
Yeah,
so
I think that's a pretty fair. I mean, I know some people really and people really
some
like
people really do
comic,
love it.
yeah,
Yeah,
which is
but
fine. I'm
that
not
was
huge. Logan Nine Fingers is awesome. That is a fact, without a doubt.
Don't get me started on Jamie Lannister's character.
Okay, this is a book canon only here at the Fantasy Network. We don't acknowledge that other. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I'm a character-driven reader. I always have been. I don't mind a good plot, but if you can give me a good cast of characters, so you feel like that is the links between Star Wars and Wheel of Time for you, and all these other.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean the plot in Star Wars is nothing.
It's not revolutionary.
It's nothing nobody's ever seen before.
Yeah, we're fighting the Empire.
World building and character development. You know,
Yeah.
I think that's what I really think that's sort of the pie. I think, you know, there's other stuff too. I mean, especially once you move it into a visual medium, you know, then there's obviously, you know, music and, you know, all the production sort of production.
Yeah, there's a whole nother challenge when it comes to that, even in writing.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I mean, I think that's sort of the pie, and I think character development, it's just gotta be your number one. I mean, that's because because nobody really, when people talk about books, how often do you hear people say, "Oh, like the world building is great"? No, it's almost like, "Oh, this guy's character arc is like." It's the characters. Everyone's like, "Oh, it's the first thing people talk about. I love this guy, and I love this guy, and I love this," you know, whatever. And that's why you're there.
Yeah, I mean, just like this, people are pointing out their favorites. So, you know, we have SA characters, which is Stormlight Archive, which is Brandon Sanderson's series. Me and you were talking about before we went live. Our characters are Chef's Kiss, and I would agree. I think there's some amazing characters, and then Liveship Traders trilogy has the most amazing character developments. I want to say something. So, by the way, Matt, I don't know if you've heard of Robin Hobb, but Robin Hobb is a very good friend of George R.R. Martin. She is just a
I didn't know it was a she until I looked her up.
Well,
I totally thought for all this time you were talking about a guy.
Not been Robin Hobb.
On your radar. I was way off. Yeah.
I'm actually in the final book of Liveship Traders trilogy, and I think if I could pick a fantasy to be adapted to TV, like a single piece, Liveship Traders trilogy would be a tremendous adaptation for Showtime or HBO or anybody, even without all the connections to the Realm of the Outerling series, which is a 16-book series. Liveship by itself, and I haven't finished it yet, but just through 2 books, some of the most ridiculously, amazingly crafted characters of all time. I mean, you'll see. I'm going to review it soon. I'm going to review all 3 books separate and then do a spoiler discussion. I'll have to chill. Have you guys read the manga Berserk? I have not. Actually, have you heard of it?
I watched I think I watched the anime, and I did play a little bit of. There is a Sega Dreamcast game adaptation. He's got the like absurd sword. It's like, you know,
I love it. Yeah. This is one where when I clear out a little bit of my TBR, I'm going to check out Berserk. I'm also going to be reading Attack on Titan. Crystal says character development is the most important to me, and good writing. That's why Hobb is my fave. I couldn't agree more. Hobb makes writing seem so easy that it's almost defeating. John Gwynn writes great characters. You're damn right. John Gwynn has mastered character development when it comes to doing it in a 400 to 500 page novel. I don't know if there's anybody that does it better than Zhang Guan in that short time period. Kenneth is so amazing. Yeah, from Liveship Traders. I'm just kind of working my way through the chat here. You mentioned Robin Hobb and it blows up, man. I'm telling you, it's incredible.
Yeah, it seems like it. I mean, the one that ever. So outside of Malazan, which is one I literally just started. I'm like not even.
Yeah, let's talk about it. Yeah.
Well, so I'm going into Malazan, of course. I thought we were talking about this beforehand. Unfortunately, I feel like I'm going to be going into it with sort of bad intentions, because it's something, it's if you've ever had people that you don't like recommend things to you, people that are obnoxious or annoying, sort of recommend things to you, like you go into it with sort of that notion, and so that is unfortunately how I'm going into it. And it's just I've heard a lot of like the really hardcore Malazan fans be like, oh dude, it's just like so complex. I mean, all these other books, like they're just so basic. And it's like, come on.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, because I think there's a little bit of gatekeeping, and it happens in every community.
It does.
So I'm not crapping on Malazan or anything like that. But what's funny is Rhythma is an amazing channel here on BookTube, and she put out a video saying basically, is Malazan too complicated? Like, kind of like the expectations versus reality of the series. Mm-hmm. And I thought she did an amazing job of making it seem a lot more approachable and really addressing some of that. I get gatekeeping for lack of a better term. So I'm curious. I know I've only read like the first 10 pages on a whim, and I'm going to be reading it this summer.
I'm not much further. I read the prologue and I listened to audiobook, the prologue and sort of chapter 1. And like that's so I'm not at all into it to talk about it.
Yeah. And here Beryl says Malazan's one of the best. I'm on the second book and it's amazing. Yeah, we're not. And to be clear, I think it's probably going to be amazing. It's just that sometimes when people talk about how complex it is, it can kind of set you on a bad foot with it, right?
Right.
I think you can point to a lot of different things. So, hey man, I love Malazan so far. I also love Wheel of Time, Stormlight Archive, A Song of Ice Fire, all the greats. The gates are open. Come on in. See, that's what we need more of. We need more people not telling you how you're going to have a PhD to understand it, but to say, hey, there's a good community here and we can get you through. Rid's videos is great for alleviating any fears. I totally agree.
Yeah, the problem with this book is that the main character, at least where I'm at so far, his name is Perrin, although it is spelled differently. And also reading Wheel of Time, where a main character, point of view character's name is Perrin, and in Malazan it's Paran as opposed to Perin or whatever. And so it's just kind of like, I don't know, man. I have to hold off. I don't know if I can, I can do this all at the same time.
Yeah, I finally read Gardens of the Moon because of Rhythma. Yeah, I'm telling you, Rid's video is really good. I'll send it to you, Matt, when we're off here. I think you're gonna like it. It kind of sets those expectations, and I know you it was kind of.
But the world seems cool actually so far into it. I mean, because it's like the Emperor, and it seems like it's like the prologue. So I'm spoiling maybe the first like chapter or whatever.
Nah, it's fine.
I think it takes what happens in the prologue. Then you go like 7 years later is where you're at in like chapter 1, and sort of there's kind of assassination. This guy's kind of drugged before like the high authorities, being accused of things. So
I mean, it sounds great.
I'm not at all into it. So I cannot make really any sort of criticism or anything about it yet, because I'm not into it. But the audiobook, the guy who's reading it, sounds good. So I mean, it sounds like something I'm gonna listen to.
Yeah, and Beryl, I will be jumping into Malazan this summer, full steam ahead with a bunch of discussions and things like that. I'm just reading some other stuff now. Matt, the one thing I really respect about you is I feel like when you do something, you do it full tilt.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I say that is because, a lot of people say, okay, and you did, right? You read The Hobbit, you kind of made your way through fantasy, but like you just jumped in the Wheel of Time, while doing the Song of Ice and Fire book club. So what made you want to start reading Wheel of Time? I'm very curious.
Well, Wheel of Time, although is actually I had actually heard of Wheel of Time before I'd ever heard of A Song of Ice and Fire. This girl I used to date, her and her brother, who is actually one of our listeners on the show, or brother-in-law, I should say. He's one of our listeners and he's in our group. So shout out to Jay. I don't know if he's listening right now or not. He might be.
Hey, Jay.
So they were like hardcore into it. And so they kept saying a lot of the same things. So like, oh, it's so good. And I remember it was like, I think the whole series, I don't think had been finished yet. And so I think that Brandon's saying, I don't even know if Robert Jordan had died yet at this point. And so they all said the same thing. Like, it's so good. But then like, it kind of slows down a bit. And so this is around like book 7, books 8, which I think is something a lot of people say. And then, so that was kind of like my first entry. And I actually started reading Eye of the World.
Really?
Yeah. And I'm like reading. And at this point, I'm like not at all interested in stuff. And so I got to about chapter 11 right after the Trollocs attack and they take off. And then I put it down, just stopped. For whatever reason and never picked it back up again. And so then I have 2 brothers that have read it and they're all about it. My brother Jeremy, he's my older brother. He's read it like hundreds of times. He's always telling me it's like so good. It's my favorite book series. Love it. Love all the characters and everything. And then Ez had read it. And so I kind of knew about it when Ez like jumped into it. I was like, oh yeah, I kind of know a little bit about that because there are things that I know about Wheel of Time. And I've said this too,
that
like
you shouldn't know.
That I shouldn't know. Yes, there are things that I do know will happen in the series as I'm still reading it for the first time. Nothing major. In fact, actually, where we're at right now, I think it's almost pretty obvious that the thing I know is about to happen. And sort of, it's just sort of the main character's love interest. That's really sort of about it. That's all I really know.
Oh, well, that's not so bad then.
Yeah, but I think a lot of people, again, because people love the characters. And this is a series with so many characters. People are torn so many different ways, and you want to experience that for the first time.
Yeah.
And sort of, no Brand Althor, the name, the Dragon Reborn, and like kind of a little bit of how it worked.
Sometimes the covers give away enough.
They do, man. I mean, the covers on these on that book series almost tell you exactly like how it's gonna end.
I love the covers, by the way.
They're great.
I love them.
They are great artwork.
So
when we did, Ez and I had talked about doing Wheel of Time even before there was even news of the show, but the hardest part has been figuring out a format.
Yeah,
because we're like
big series.
Well, I did the math, and to do a chapter by chapter, one chapter per week, and maybe this is point of view because how it ultimately broke down, but I think it would take you like 39 years. And
that's job security, I guess. Right?
Job security, yeah. But it's like ridiculous. And I was like, dude, even if you do one point of view or one chapter a day, it would take you 3 years. Because there's just so many, right? There's so many chapters because it's a big series. So it was ultimately, we wanted to do it, but it was just figuring out how are we gonna do it. And so we ultimately settled on what we did, where we said we're just gonna do it in blocks. Kind of is what it is, and then we can once we get through them, we'll come back and we can pick this character and talk about this event and this and this and this. The same thing that we're gonna do with Game of Thrones. Once we get past the reread,
right?
Is okay. Now we're just talking theories and speculation and all that stuff.
Yeah, very cool. I mean, Wheel of Time is definitely a great choice for someone like you who wants to read, the biggest, the baddest, right? I think it's a good mountain to climb. So,
yeah, and I mean, I really like it so far, and I hope you and I have talked about this as well. The show, man, I really hope the show does well. I really hope the show does well because I think it could be huge. I think people will really like it. It's sort of, it's kind of I feel like it's kind of almost like on Lord of the Rings scale, like in terms of like where people can jump into it. I think it's a little more adult than Lord of the Rings. It's obviously way it's not nearly as mature as the Song of Ice and Fire. But I think it could really do well on, especially now. I think now is the perfect time for it. Like syndicated television, that sort of like NBC, that wouldn't work. 26 episodes, smaller budget, wouldn't work. So the streaming sort of like, you look at The Witcher. Okay, you could do that. If you make this show into like The Witcher, boom, we're on to something. So I think this is the perfect time for it to come out. And you do the budget right and everything, and it's bigger. The magic is bigger. I think people will like it, man. I really, really, really hope it does well.
Yeah, I do too. I think it's always a big task to adapt something that not just, I mean, put aside the fact that it's 14 books, but to do something that has, been in the minds and the hearts of a lot of fans for a very long time, and it's also fantastical. It's a massive cast, so recasting's there's a big challenge ahead. I hope that it succeeds, because I think even if you're not a Wheel of Time fan, I think that having fantasy shows succeed is a good thing for the genre, because we need to be able to say that we don't just have to have Lord of the Rings. We don't just have to have Star Wars. We don't just have to have Game of Thrones, which is why it kind of blows my mind when people like root against like new fantasy shit. I just don't get it. Like, I knew a couple of people who really wanted Witcher to fail, and I'm just like, I don't see why you would want that. Like, no one.
Henry, I'm down for anything Henry Cavill said.
Have you watched Witcher? I think you said that you were going to get around to it. I really want you to. And I
watched the first episode, and I was just that busy at the time, and so I put it in. I'm going to. I need to actually sit down and play all of the games, because then I'll be like,
Witcher 3 is
right. It's like, it's one of the greatest games ever made. Yeah, and so I'll really get into it and all of that. I have it. I own it. I just haven't played it.
I think everybody owns it at this. I think it comes with internet connection.
Pretty much. Yeah.
Aaron says, is it Auron? I feel like it's Auron. It says, I hope
well, he is a Final Fantasy X fan, and it's Auron in Final Fantasy
okay,
X.
so it's Auron for sure then.
Yeah.
Okay. I hope it's better than The Witcher. I like season 1, but it's got its rough spots. Yeah, there was a couple like bonehead mistakes in the first season of Witcher, like not labeling when it was a time jump, which I think they were trying to kind of be heady about it, and it just came across kind of confusing. But there was a lot more positive than negative. I think Wheel of Time has to be a little bit better than what Witcher, like it has to be better than what Witcher was, because of the scale of the show, in the budget it will demand. But Amazon has literally all of the money, so we might be set up for a successful mission.
The male-female base magic system along with the female dominant society. Yeah,
I do think there's some things
really
that are going to have to be changed about that. Because I do agree. I think that's like, when I explain that concept to people, I say, okay, like, the match system is treated differently by men and women, and that's interesting. But there are definitely some interactions, and I'm talking about just spanking. Like,
yes,
it's
there's gonna be. Well, I mean, this is something, as and I don't know if we talked about it on the podcast or just something. My biggest concern. Well, I have two concerns for the Wheel of Time show.
Okay,
one is, of course, the timing. You and I have talked about this we've talked about this.
That's just being realistic.
That's just being realistic. If they don't launch this show this year, it's in trouble.
It'll have a even bigger hill to climb.
It's going to have a bigger hill to climb, because in terms of mainstream audience, obviously we're fantasy readers. We know what it is, but the mainstream audience does not. Does not know what it is. And if it has to come out next year against House of the Dragon, the new Game of Thrones show, which now everybody who doesn't know anything about fantasy knows what Game of Thrones is, and the upcoming Lord of the Rings show, which is big, huge, mega movies, I think it's gonna have a hard time. I think it's gonna have a hard time for people to want to get into it. Whereas right now, you're it's wide open.
Yeah, right. I think, this. So I will caveat that, because I agree with you. I think, and we're not saying that we think those shows are definitely better than Wheel of Time. We're not saying that. We're just saying, from established franchises, it's very hard to get into that sphere. It's like if someone makes a social media site in today's age, it's very hard to compete with a Facebook or Twitter, right? Like, competition is pretty sparse. And the one caveat to this, so I'm going to counterpoint our talking point, is I do think we are in a new age of television and entertainment where these things may be able to exist at the same time. My biggest concern is that if it doesn't do as big of numbers as they wanted to, what does that investment look like in the following year? But I do think that the one nice thing is that Wheel of Time has a smaller budget than Lord of the Rings, so it has room to grow. Right. If Lord of the Rings comes out season 1 and does, meh, they're cutting it because they're spending more than any other TV show ever. So there's a lot of questions to be had. And I agree with you. I think they should launch this fall if they can. You don't want them to release something rushed, but
it's just hoping. I mean, here's the hope. And I guess it's just right now it's crazy too, because you think like, like there's still content that should have been out. That's not even like the James Bond movie, No Time to Die, has been done for like over a year, but they're like, we're not releasing it until we can show it.
Dune's been done.
Right? Yeah. Dune. Yeah. So some of these things have been done. Some of these things they're putting out and everybody's watching it because there's still restrictions with COVID. Right. I mean, would Tiger King, I mean, seriously, would Tiger King have done as well had it not been like the first week of COVID when like nobody can go outside? And
that was the perfect storm.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. And like, I would have watched it regardless because everyone's talking about it online and it's ridiculous, but I don't think it would have done nearly. I think this is based off books that Bridgerton or whatever that show is.
It is. Yeah.
Would that have done as well? It had it. Maybe I don't know.
People do.
I watched some of that because my girlfriend was watching it.
I actually tried an episode. I got about 10 minutes in.
I was like playing on my tablet, and
I said, "Are they not shooting lightning bolts?" I said, "I'm done."
They were not. They're not. It's based on books, I think. I guess I don't know, but yeah. So I do really really hope that the Wheel of Time show does well. My other sort of concern is I could cancel people. I think people might try to cancel culture it, man, because you have this war between men and women and the power, and why can't they use this power, and why can't it seems like it's literally made for like it's coming out at this time, and
I'm not worried about that because I do think that Rafe, I always mess up his name.
Rafe Judkins.
I always want to call him Jafe. But Rafe, I think he's pretty aware. Like he's a pretty in tune dude. When it comes to that kind of stuff, I think they're going to be able to adjust it for today's age, where they're going to be able to update some of those. I don't even want to say themes, but just interactions and
some of those things. Yeah.
And there's also a whole point to the magic system. So like what you see is not what you get, and like it's a story, so it does have a point, and there's room to grow. So I don't think I'm terribly concerned with that, but there are moments like I hope I don't see parents spanking Fail. I don't want.
Yeah, I don't like again. That's not gonna work.
Yeah,
like Twitter will be all over. Like, are you kidding me? I think Twitter will be like all on that like immediately. Yeah.
Yeah. That's actually a funny point here is I don't know if you knew this, but MTV tried to adapt the Shannara Chronicles by Terry Brooks, which is like a beloved series. Like,
oh, okay.
Like I'm talking like some people are like Terry Brooks, their favorite author, and MTV tried to tackle it and just like they bombed it. I don't know what happened.
Yeah. That happens. That happens a lot of times. It's people say, hey, they see Lord of the Rings is successful. That's why. Remember the 2000s? We got all those superhero movies that flopped because Spider-Man did so well. Like,
yeah.
Remember when Ben Affleck? Remember when Ben Affleck was Daredevil?
Yeah,
that got a sequel.
Hey, they'll do anything. It must have made money. So what is your favorite part of Wheel of Time now that you've read 4 books and you're beginning the 5th? What's your favorite thing so far about Wheel of Time?
Man, it's more so like the thing I like about Wheel of Time. First of all, it just has epic moments in it, and that is one thing that I like about it a lot more than A Song of Ice and Fire. A Song of Ice and Fire really, even like going back in the show, there's not really those sort of like compared to like Star Wars or something, and somebody does some like blow, whatever. Game of Thrones doesn't really have that. Wheel of Time has that, which is something I really like.
They lean into it.
The end of the Great Hunt is one of the most awesome is hands down one of the most awesome
Easy
endings to any story I've ever read, seen, played, period. It's so good. And then I like, again, Rand is my guy. I like Rand as a character. I like the idea that he is almost like that he's pushing back on it in a way, which is sort of different than a lot of other people. It's actually very odd comparing it to some of the things I really like, like look at a Jon Snow. Jon Snow's always like, no, I'm bitter, I'm bigger than this, I'm better than this. Kind of a thing. Actually, I think somebody who Rand is probably most comparable to is kind of like Superman, to be honest. He is this guy who has this mysterious birth, and he has all of this power, and he feels like it's his sort of the life he wanted to live, which is a farmer. Oh, there you go. Wonder where we got inspiration for that.
Yeah,
is being pulled in this direction by this birth that your birthright that you didn't know you had, and you're coming to grips with, and everyone's saying you're bigger than this, you're better.
You just blew my mind a little bit.
He's total. I mean, he's totally Superman. It's so obvious. I mean, it's so obvious where he got the inspiration for Rand al'Thor.
I like that a lot. And like, this is one of the things, like, I'm not really big into comic books or superhero stuff. I like reading, watching some of the content that people put out for it. Just because it's interesting, but like, that's cool that you can draw that parallel. And I did, I know Superman's origin story, right?
Right.
So
exactly.
I had never thought of that. And that really just kind of, the Superman comparison is spot on. Never thought of that. That you should make a video, drawing comparisons, by the way. I think that would be a good one.
Well, I think, and that's when because as and I actually, I'm a big Batman guy. He's a big Superman guy. Again, I like Batman because I like Jon Snow. All these guys trying to do more than they probably should. But when Superman is a character that you can so easily mess up because he's so powerful that it's so hard to write for him for a lot of people, because it's like, well, the enemy's got a gun, that's that's gonna kill him. Same kind of thing with Rand. It's like, oh, that guy's got a sword. Oh, okay. Like, am I really supposed to be worried about that? This guy's like the most powerful being on the planet. But when they write him, it's that struggle. It's the struggle of being, and that's in a lot of superhero things, that sort of struggle of being Clark Kent or Superman. The struggle of Rand constantly saying, like, Tam is my father. I'm a shepherd. He's constantly saying that over and over and over again.
And that makes him very relatable.
Yeah.
Wow, man, you just blew a lot of people's minds with that. I really like that.
The Superman comparison.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, this is why I like doing these conversations, because you have a totally different perspective of Wheel of Time than I do, right? I mean, I read a lot of fantasy, and you read fantasy as well, but you're also into comic. You know a lot of stuff. So this is why I really love having these discussions like this. Mr. Panther asked, and I feel like you would be the authority on this because you've been up in the news, but have they announced which books the first season of Wheel of Time will cover?
There have been sort of leaked. They've said in an interview with Rafe, kind of alluded to they've got the green light for seasons 1 and 2.
Yeah, I've heard that season 2.
That seems to be what the thing is. It seems like it's going to be 8 episodes per season, and there's 6 episodes that they pretty much had, I think, mostly done last year. Then COVID happened.
Yeah, they were really close,
and they were over in Europe filming, and it got shut down, stuff like that. And from what there's 6 episodes. There's titles for them. They maybe leaked titles. We don't know exactly if they're word for word, but it seems like we should be doing about 2 books a season. I don't know what they're going to blend forward, stuff like that, where we are in
New Spring might be mixed in there.
Exactly. Which is a prequel. Where Ez and I are at right now on our podcast is the beginning of book 5, and there's a character that's in this book which finally has sort of some stuff to do. He's in book 1, but he's cast already, and he's like not even in books 2, 3, or 4. Logain, the character.
Oh
was.
yeah, well yeah, he is technically in book 1, right?
He is, but
Yeah.
you cast him, and then there are characters who have stuff going in book 1 and 2 who you think would be cast already, and they're not. So it's not entirely clear how they're going to manage this all. You have to think about production schedules, getting actors and actresses in with their schedules, making it all work, and
yeah,
how do you maneuver this all around? So is there going to be stuff from book 8 in season 1 because we can shift it there, right? Maybe. Game of Thrones had stuff that happens in book 3 and like season 6.
Yeah,
right?
that's true.
I mean, yeah. You just have to move stuff around, so we'll see. But it seems like I don't think we're getting to the end of the second book. I think they're going to cut off somewhere in the middle. That's where I've always
the end
felt.
of the second book has to be a season finale. I mean, it has to be.
Yeah, it does. It does. But if that's the case, then I don't know.
Yeah, I have some ideas, but to avoid spoilers for people who haven't read Wheel of Time, I won't. But I'd like to come on Heroes because I actually have a theory about.
Well, we want you on Heroes for our next episode, as I
well, perfect. I'm ready.
Perfect. Yeah. Okay.
I'm absolutely ready. The Book and the Drink is signing off. It's good to see you, man. Make sure to check out the Book and the Drinks channel once you're done here, because that guy's channel is phenomenal. I really
Oscar is saying here, everyone needs to read Saga by Brian K. Vaughan. Great comic book series. Yeah,
I've actually heard that before. Have you read that, Matt?
I've not. I don't know anything about it. Is it DC, Marvel, or is it like kind of its own? Is it its own thing?
I don't know. I just know I've had multiple people. So when I say I don't love comics, they tell me to read Saga.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And I see my friend Nick from Key Issues on YouTube talk about it before. So Oran says there has to be a ton of bleed over. So I think it'll be bits of book 1, 2, and basically some new spring sprinkle on top.
Yeah,
I think that
I can see that.
Yeah. I think that's a pretty fair assumption. I'll tell you what, so one of the things about Wheel of Time, and I wanted to see if you agree with this, that grabbed me and also kind of like jarred me a little bit, because I was coming, A Song of Ice and Fire. I had finished my second read through of it. I mean, it was my third. I can't remember, but people were like, read Wheel of Time next. So I did, right? And I jumped into it. In that prologue of Eye of the World.
So good.
It's so epic. It's
so good.
So epic. I'll be disappointed. I don't think they can. I'll be honest. I don't even know if they can.
I've talked about how I think they should do it.
Let me hear it, because I
wouldn't start with it. I would not start with it. I think the prologue of Game of Thrones works as the prologue of the show. I think it's perfect for that.
Yeah.
The way I would do the prologue for Eye of the World is I would have Rand have that as a dream or fragments of a dream throughout season 1.
I like that. Okay.
That's how I would do it, because I think it would be a cool way. Then he's kind of like, what is going on? I'm seeing these things, especially once he gets split up. If they do get split up, we've talked about it. We think they might not. And stuff like that. And so I think he can sort of, as you said here, Oren, I think they'll do flashbacks to the prologue of Eye of the World in season 2, maybe as an opener. Yeah, something like that. I think I would do it. I would do it as Rand having dreams, because there's a lot of dreams that they do have, and like throughout the whole series, they're having these dreams. And I think that would be something that Rand has. And then once he kind of realizes who he is, it's like, oh wow, now this makes more sense.
Yeah, I kind of like that, actually. I like that approach to it. I think you could, again, sprinkle that in. I don't think it would be confusing. I think it would kind of...
No, I think if you start with it, it would be confusing.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest.
Because you wouldn't get back to it for so long that it'd be like, what the heck was that?
Yeah, it might be a little too long. I like the idea of sprinkling it in. I like that a lot.
Like the prologue for Game of Thrones works, because even though we don't touch the White Walkers or the others, right, for a while,
yeah,
our main character immediately goes to the place where they're at and is told that all this stuff's happening, and then his uncle goes missing.
Well, but think about this. The second chapter is Bran seeing the man who ran into the others and ran away from the Night's Watch being beheaded for betraying his duty. Now,
why did he do that? Yeah, exactly.
Me tell you what, that bit of writing is so amazing. The amount of world building that gets done in the first 2 chapters of A Song of Ice and Fire is ridiculous. You know everything you need to know. I mean, not really, but it's a great stage setter, and you immediately have what, 4 characters introduced right there, you know, with the
The
start.
first handful of chapters of Game of Thrones is so good
Yeah,
that it's built so well
this
that you're hooked. I mean, you're just like, wow, this, because everything happens. I mean, in the first 5 chapters, we see that, wow, the king is coming. John wants to leave for the wall. This guy's leaving. There's this guy, Mance Rayder. Bran is pushed out of a window.
and Bobby Baratheon and Ned Stark are having
and there's a history between them, and he was supposed to marry.
good.
It's just so good. I think the Eye of the Worlds, again, it's built very similar in the first 10 chapters, because I think that's going to be episode 1. I think it's going to end with, like, you know, this isn't major spoilers, but like the Trollocs attacking, and they all have to, the catalyst for them to leave the Shire, right? Okay, we got to leave, basically.
Edmundsfield, right?
Edmundsfield, yeah.
It's Edmonds,
yeah,
we know that.
Emmons, yeah, it's Edmundsfield. But so, you know, they're it's a dad and his son, and they're in the woods, and there's a mysterious figure, and what is that? And then this strange woman comes to town, and what's going on? And she has this coin, and what, you know, and there's a festival, and it's all this stuff. And so it's like you're sort of building this world. There's mystery, everything seems fine, but there's something that's bad, that's about to, like, go wrong. You know, and it all stems from Lord of the Rings. I mean, it's all
everything
rip from Lord of the Rings, which is great. I mean, it worked then, it works
the
now.
thing I love about Wheel of Time is I feel comfortable in Eye of the World because I feel it's very Tolkien derivative. I like that. I like Tolkien. So then I think The Great Hunt takes it in a totally different direction. And then I think you get a little bit more mature themes and a lot more dynamic characters. And I like that it started with the roots of Tolkien and then expanded off of that, like into its own thing, right? I think it's one of the most ambitious pieces of literature in Western culture. It's fascinating. So
yeah. Oren here says, I'm definitely glad that it's season 1, basically the exact same as the book. Yeah, I think it worked well. I do think that worked well for Game of Thrones.
Yeah, you know, it's funny. I actually just had a commenter. Go ahead.
Is there any book series that you think would work, you want to see come to whether it's move? I think now I'm all for the Netflix style. I think that's just the best way to do any content, really.
I think TV shows are the primo way. There's something to be said for like a blockbuster, but it's harder to adapt big time fantasy into movies because they tend to be very long, right? Like the Stormlight Archive is very long, and it's only 4 books out of 10 so far. Right now, I mean, I'd love to see the First Law because those characters coming to life. I mean, actually, Matt, you know, if you're a big audiobook person, Pacey does the narration for those books, and a lot of people think he's the best narrator in the game. I actually have a friend, Chris Bookish Culture.
What's it called? First Law
Trilogy. It starts with the Blade itself. There's actually 9 books published in the universe. And the second sequel trilogy is about to be wrapped up this year. So you would have 10 books, but they're much shorter. They're 500, 600 pages. Some are 400 pages.
Joe Abercrombie.
Yes, Joe Abercrombie
and Fitch, or just Abercrombie?
Just Abercrombie. Okay. No Fitch. Man. He dropped
the
he said it wasn't a good look.
I'm out.
He's out. So the thing about First Law, if I could sell you on it for a bit, is one, Joe Abercrombie is much like George R.R. Martin in the fact that he's not afraid to take some risks with his characters and his plot, and it can be very nihilistic, but he also has his own tone, so it doesn't feel derivative off of Game of Thrones, in my opinion. Like when people say that, I get the relation between the two, but Joe Abercrombie stands out on his own because of how beautiful I think his writing is. And his character
is it The Blade itself?
The Blade itself is book 1, and okay. I mean, I might just gift it to you on Audible because I think it's that good. And I know that you'll love it if you're into characters because, I mean, there's a lot of people who would say that the First Law is in contention for the best characters of all time. I'd have to really think about that because there's a lot of good characters. But I do know that characters from First Law, I think, a character from First Law won my character of the year and my year-end awards for 2020.
Oh, okay.
So that tells you a lot. But First Law is just super good, and it is grim. and it's very like heavy, but it also has really good humor. Like I think Abercrombie's humor and the way that he's able to like lighten some of the really dark situations that the characters find themselves in is really impressive. And they're not terribly long. I would love to hear your take on some First Law. I think that'd be
Okay.
really, really cool. Let's see. The problem with First Law is I think the main characters will be too unlivable if you actually see what they're doing in a realistic way. I mean, I think that's fair. I don't know. Like part of the question, Matt, like you asked me, what do I want to see adapted to TV or movie or whatever? We'll just say TV. It's also about like what will adapt well, right? Like
Right.
I love the Farseer trilogy by Robin Hobb. I don't know how well it could be adapted because of how much internal dialogue is going on because it's from a first person perspective. However, the sequel trilogy to that, it's not really a direct sequel, but it's in the same universe chronologically. That happens after that. It's called the Liveship Trader trilogy, and it is third person. It has a huge cast of characters, and I think, and maybe it's because it's in my head right now, I think that's my number one thing I'd like to see adapted. And I haven't even finished book 3 yet. I just started book 3. But I'm telling you, some of these characters are so good. And I think nautical fantasy, it's not my favorite. It's probably one of my least favorites, actually. I don't like Pirates of the Caribbean at all. I think there's a huge opportunity for that. I think people like Pirates of the Caribbean.
You didn't like pirates?
I'm not into ships. I know.
Oh, really? Oh,
I
okay.
know I'm the worst, right? But I really do think that that would be a great thing to adapt. I'd like to see anything from Brandon Sanderson be adapted just for the sole fact that his magic systems are so cool. I also just kind of want to see it. Like, I just want to see someone try it. But I think it's going to be a pretty big effort with any of his works. But right now, I would say Liveship Traders trilogy is like the one thing I want to see adapted probably the most. And then number two is Duncan Egg.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think we're getting. We're probably
we're getting it.
Well, we don't know for sure. We don't know 100% for sure that we're getting.
I'm an optimist.
Yeah.
Somehow.
Yeah. For me, I would say I think it sucks that they tried to do a movie Dark Tower and it didn't really do.
I was actually going to say Dark Tower
very well. I think it would do much better if you did that as sort of like that Netflix style, right? 8 episodes, whatever, 3 seasons. I think you could even do it in 3 seasons. Just do a book season, and maybe get on that route. I think it would do better.
Well, there's 7 books for Dark Tower.
Yeah, I don't know. You do like 5 seasons. I'm just saying. I'm not saying. I don't know that I would do a book. I don't know that you do 7.
I don't think Gunslinger even needs a whole season.
No. And I think you could shorten stuff and stuff like that. And I think they should retry, because they did it with movies. I think they should redo Narnia as a thing. I think it would work way better.
Read Narnia.
You get young kids. Oh, it's a very easy read. You get young kids, start them out 7. That I would do. That you could do a book a season. You could totally do a book a season. You could even, honestly, if you wanted, go like as kind of crazy as it is, but hey, it works. Like Riverdale, right? I mean, they took the Archie comics, which are like the most basic, like like the Archie comics are literally nothing like
Who
Riverdale.
Owns Narnia?
C.S. Lewis estate, I think.
I want to know who owns the
well, I think it's Warner Brothers, maybe. Which is HBO, which is AT&T. Yeah,
I mean, HBO Max is coming for it, so I could see it.
Oh, but I think Narnia would do really, really, really well in a TV in that setting.
I think you're right. I think
7 seasons, really 7, good. And you can shorten some stuff here and there.
Sure, yeah.
I think you could do it in 5 seasons, 8 episodes a season. I totally think you could do it. And even if you wanted to add stuff and stuff like that, you have big, huge characters. A lot of it's animation. I think it'd be great.
Yeah, I would. And it's funny. We're talking about like adapting stuff. I wish sometimes that people wouldn't frown so much on animated adaptations.
Oh my god.
Because there's a lot of good like Rage of Dragons, for instance, I think would be a tremendous anime. Like I think it would
Disney made Narnia. Oren says.
See, I thought Disney made Narnia, and I'm like, if they can make content from it, they're doing it.
They should.
And they should.
Disney makes great. Obviously,
and they've been
WandaVision, Mandalorian, everything they have coming right now.
Yeah,
The Captain America, Captain. I keep saying it. It's not a Captain America show, but again, that's why, because it's Falcon and Winter Soldier. Nobody cares. Okay, I mean, it's the guys who are not Captain America. Then there's the Loki show coming. We're like, oh, okay, yeah, that could be.
I need to read Dark Tower, but I'm not sure if I should fit in some other Stephen King first. I haven't read any of the stuff yet.
Netflix is trying to reboot it. Yeah.
Yeah, I saw that. So I assume, Derek, are you talking about Narnia?
Or Dark Tower.
And as I wait for that response, I do want to say that I would recommend. Now, I haven't finished Dark Tower, but I've done a decent amount of research into this. And some people tell you to read a bazillion books. Some people tell you don't read any. I'll be honest. I think if you read The Stand and Eyes of the Dragon, I think that's good enough.
What was the series you told me? That was like an Arthur tale. That was like
the Arthurian tale. Yeah, it's a Warlord Chronicles by Bernard Cornwell. Dresden Files would be a great TV show.
You could do that. I mean, I don't know anything about it except that it's King Arthur, and
I'm in.
You could totally do it.
Well, and his Netflix show has been a massive success.
Whose?
Bernard Cornwell's The Last Kingdom. It's very popular. It's really come into its own this last 2 seasons.
Because there have been Arthur sort of shows and stuff, like, you know, they're always like totally different topics. Like, have you ever watched Merlin? It was a BBC show. Okay,
no. Is it good?
It's good. It's like most BBC shows, you know. It's kind of like quirky, whatever, but it's really funny because you'll watch seasons 1. It's like 4 seasons. You'll watch seasons 1 and seasons 2. And you're like, okay, whatever. It's kind of whatever. Tongue in cheek, whatever. And then they won an award. Okay. And then you turn on season 3 and you're like, everything is different. You're like, the budget is like way through the roof for this thing. And then its ending is like, it gets way more into that sort of like, you know, it's like dramedy, right? Drama comedy.
Yeah.
It's just way more to like drama. And the ending is really good. They do a really good job.
I might have to check that out. That sounds fun. There's not enough.
Yeah, seasons 1 and 2 just have on to kind of like watch
background noise,
background noise, and then like season 3 is where it really picks up. Yeah,
I think Paul Smith has a really good one here, and it's funny because Dresden Files actually was attempted to be adapted, I believe, on the Sci-Fi Network, and it fell through. But Dresden has a huge fan base. I mean, I would say it's one of the biggest fan bases in fantasy, and also urban fantasy is very popular right now. People really like that. And I think just being a detective show, I mean, people would see it as like a spin on like Sherlock Holmes or something, but I think people could get really, really into it. Oron says here, also, Derek did confirm he was talking about Narnia for Netflix, so that's exciting. I got to look.
I think it'd be good. I think it'd be good. I will say, the guy who plays Arthur in Merlin is the guy who you will see if you find any sort of random, like, you know, Tumblr post or anything about Rhaegar Targaryen. He's almost always the person, like, kind of like how everyone uses the girl from Vikings as like Val in Game of Thrones. You know?
Yeah, that's true.
Like,
yeah,
right. Like that's who they use, and he actually would have been perfect. Like if you look at the guy, you're like, oh my god, he would have been. And he like doesn't do a lot. It does. So.
Yeah, some of them just don't. Right.
Yeah.
It's very interesting.
A lot of those British actors, they just
I think I think that
bring him in for House of the Dragon or something.
Yeah, why not? Bring him in. He looks like a Targaryen. He'll work.
Yeah.
But talking about Dunk and Egg, that's something I kind of wanted to bring up because again, we're talking about fantastic audiobooks. The Dunk and Egg audiobooks are tremendous. If you have read A Song of Ice and Fire, or even if you haven't, and maybe you just don't think it's your cup of tea or the show turned you off of the series, I really recommend everybody to give a shot to A Night of the Seven Kingdom, which is the 3 stories from the Dunk and Egg, you know, kind of adventures. And it combines all 3 of them, the Hedge Knight, the Mystery Knight, and the Sworn Sword. Is that right?
Well, the Sworn Sword's the second one, Mystery Knight's the third.
Okay. Yeah. So I think George gets to write from a different perspective that's a way less grim. And I think it's also some of his
much lighter
writing.
Much lighter Game of Thrones.
Yeah, like you could read it to a kid, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, there's like 1 or 2 parts he'd probably, but very PG-13. I'm PG-13.
Yeah, and a really
almost PG, tale. But there's like 1 or 2 spots where PG-13.
Yeah, I'd say PG-13 would work. I'm very curious. Yeah. Do you think that adaptation is going to be animated, or do you think that they'll try to do a live version of Dunk and Egg?
Um, you know, Game of Thrones is such a weird. It's almost like I don't know what they're doing with it because like let's look at Star Wars for example.
Mm-hmm.
Star Wars is a fandom in which almost all of the content works for kids, but then there's stuff that's even more for kids.
Yeah.
Game of Thrones, if you go that route, it's almost like it's all for adults except for the stuff that isn't. But then it's like, when are you going to let your kid watch Dunk and Egg and then like?
So I don't
think like
it's going to be a live adaptation. Let's be honest. I think they're going to try to cash in on that, and they know the audience. I wouldn't mind seeing animated actually. To be honest with you, but
I remember sitting in the movie theater, a midnight opening night for The Dark Knight, right? And I'm like, it's Batman, whatever. And I'm sitting literally next to a dad and his kid, and we're at the scene where Christian Bale's Batman is just leveling the Joker. Like, where is, I'm just like, I feel bad for this like 6-year-old kid that went to go see a Batman movie. I'm like, dude, this is pretty adult, man. Like, so I don't know. I mean, obviously Game of Thrones is not, you should not let your 6-year-old child, well, do whatever you want.
Or do whatever you want. I mean, I watched Freddy Krueger when I was like 6. It's all good.
Yeah.
I turned out fine.
Yeah.
No, I think it's going to be live action Dunk and Egg. I think you're right. Too. I don't think they want to mix any signals. That's not the universe. And, I think HBO and Warner Brothers have enough other content for kids. It's actually one of their strongest things about their streaming platform that people really like.
They have great animation. And that is the one thing I will say is I like about sort of, I guess, Warner Brothers ultimately, or AT&T ultimately compared to Disney is, man, their animated stuff. Like because I've been diving heavy. And once I watched Justice League, I'm diving heavy back into DC Comics. Their DC animated universe, a lot of those are rated R.
Oh, yeah, they're very adult.
And I'm just like, none of this stuff like should a kid watch, although it's like animated. So
well, to be fair, and this is kind of why I was saying that I wish fantasy would lean more into animation, is because adult animation is becoming more and more popular,
bigger and bigger, especially in America. It's way big everywhere else. Yeah,
I mean, Netflix has, I think it's Dracula, and they have a couple other.
No, they did Castlevania.
I'm sorry, I always call it. I'm an idiot.
Yeah.
Castlevania, that's very.
It's very good. It's very Netflix is actually buying a lot of video game licenses to animate.
Yeah, so I think that you could adapt a lot of really good fantasy to animation, not worry about a budget.
The Ice Dragon is supposed to be getting an animated movie.
Hey, I read that. It's very good. It's definitely
HBO Max, yeah.
But it still has there's one scene that I was like, this is a kid's book? Like very like the Fallout.
I haven't read it. I have it. It's like right there.
Oh yeah, it also.
It's you can read it in like 2 minutes. It's not
the animation or the animations. My God, the illustrations in that book are very good. I really enjoy it. I have it sitting over there on the shelf. I think I gave it a 4 out of 5. One thing I wanted to say, and I forgot, we were talking about Game of Thrones and how good of a book one it is. So my first review on the channel, this is a good Fantasy Network trivia. My first book review was a Game of Thrones because I felt very confident talking about it. Well, I did my review and I was like, okay, my first review, I don't want to give something a 5 out of 5 because I don't want people to think, I'm just like a gusher, which turns out I am, by the way. But and, I was trying to like be tough on it. I want to review things with a rating that's really strict. And I gave Game of Thrones a 4 out of 5. And I even say, I don't think you can start a series better than this. And I gave it a 4 out of 5. And someone comments like, dude, this is your favorite series, one of your favorite books. You gave it a 4 out of 5. And I was like, yeah, I'm an idiot. It was a 5 out of 5. I was just trying to be like rough on my rating system. It was just, I got that comment yesterday. So just thinking about it, it's fresh in my mind. Which is one of the reasons why I decided to drop rating stuff. Like sometimes I'll go, oh, it's a 5 out of 5, but I don't really rate things on a scale of 5 anymore.
I've kind of stopped doing that. I don't really like it. Have you guys ever thought about how Jon Snow never met his mother unless he did?
Yeah. How do you know?
How do we know?
Oh, look at this. Netflix said they were rating like 30 animated shows. I'm telling you, animated shows. America was super late.
Yeah, they're animating a video game series, Shenmue, which is a game I told you about
Yes, you did, and Mudahar plays it.
I told you about it, and I think one, it'll be really good. I actually think it'll be really good, and I'm really glad people will get to see that story, because it's another one of these games where it's, these, they need to novelize more games, and
Yes.
I think a lot more people would really dive into them. It's kind of funny that The Witcher started it's like The Witcher started as a book series, didn't do very well, did like whatever, okay, but not certainly mainstream success, then goes to a game series and it blows up, and then goes to a TV shows.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of room in the genre, and I think this is really exciting. The fact that we're getting Wheel of Time, the fact we're going to get some more. I know people are really sour on Game of Thrones, but like, it's still good that they're making those shows. And
it's still like the one of the highest rated, most streamed shows.
It was the #1 stream show in 2020
of all
after
time.
season 8. So I know people, I know we're really hard on it, but I have to break it to some people. There's also a lot of people that didn't hate. I didn't like it, but there's a lot of people who didn't dislike it.
I would not discredit them changing it, coming back and changing it.
Anything's possible in
Zack
the streaming age.
Hey, HBO, Warner Brothers,
do the Martin cut.
They say, hey, I say just let Zack Snyder do it. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, actually, this is really good. Oscar says, I would love to see Mistborn as a video game. So that's a Brandon Sanderson trilogy. Not necessarily my favorite, but I do think it's probably the coolest magic system I've ever seen. And I have always said, I think Brandon's even said this before, that he thinks it would make a very good video game. And I could see that. To give you an idea, Matt, the way it works, the magic system is you like ingest different types of metals, and each metal property, like, so zinc, anything, copper, it has a different magic power that it gives to you. And certain people can burn certain metals, but then there are the Mistborns who can burn like all types of metals. So they're like super powerful. It's a sick magic system, actually. It's really good. The world building in Mistborn, even though it's not my favorite, is definitely one of the coolest magic systems out there. Chris Bookish Cauldron, who's a great friend of the channel, says there's a Mistborn board game. They are demoing it at Gen Con. They were demoing at Gen Con 2019. I wonder what came of that. I would be really interested in, Dishonored style Mistborn. That's a game that I tried. Matt, did you play Dishonored?
Yeah, I couldn't get into it.
Yeah, I ditched
it.
I knew it was good.
I didn't give it like a full playthrough, mostly because I was like, oh my god, is this Skyrim? And it just plays totally different than Skyrim. Plays totally different.
Seriously sweet. Yeah, I heard that has a pretty hard magic system as well. I think there's just so many opportunities for like crossovers and such. And it's kind of funny that we talked about, Lord of the Rings game, and we also talk about like Star Wars games before on Box Trick and whatnot. But like, could you imagine? And there actually is, and we can talk about it. But could you imagine like a new fully fledged? Because Amazon's definitely into games, Wheel of Time video game.
Yeah, I think they should. I totally think they could, and they should. And I think it could do well.
Now, have you played the original?
No, I have not played. I have not played the original, but I have watched a Let's Play of the original, and so I do. It's a first-person shooter, which is the most bizarre thing ever. My brother played it back in the day. My brother Jeremy, who was the guy who really was always been pushing the series on me, played it back in the day. He said he loved it, so it was great.
I'm actually curious. Anyone in chat? Did you know that there's a Wheel of Time video game from like 1999? I'm very curious if people know this.
I'm also curious to know. I had to pull this up. Has anybody? I brought this up in during when you were live streaming with Ez. Has anybody read the Dragonlance Chronicles? I know nothing about it other than it's like it came out in the 80s.
Isn't there like 20 or 30 books, or there's?
No, I think there's only 3. I think it's just a trilogy.
Oh, really? Maybe I'm thinking of something else.
Dragons of Autumn Twilight, Dragons of Winter Night, Dragons of Spring Dawning. All I know is the cover looks like that old school Dungeons and Dragons artwork.
All right, you said this is the Dragonlance books.
Dragonlance Chronicles, and it comes up every time I search like fantasy books, and I have it in my Amazon thing. I've just never bought it, but
oh wow, this looks very pulp. I like it. Okay, who wrote
Margaret Weiss and Tracy Hickman?
I feel like if Chris Bookish Cauldron's in the chat, he would know about Dragonlance Chronicles. He's just like an encyclopedia of fantasy.
Let me see here. This guy did. Margaret Weiss did. A lot of these books are in the 80s.
Right here,
Dragonlance, Weiss, and Hickman are amazing.
Yeah, and he says there's 15 books by the main authors.
Oh yeah, it does look like that. Yeah.
Chris Bookish.
So there's the Chronicles. There's Legends. Did I embarrass myself in front of the audience? How? Now we need the story, man. How did you?
Oh man, Chris is
yeah,
one
it does
of my
look like
favorites.
it does look like there's 15. Yeah, there's 15 books.
Oh my god, that's so
have they written
funny.
it? Have they written it? What else have they written?
That's so funny to me.
So Tracy Hickman. So this guy.
Oh, Forgotten Realms by Drizzt. Yeah, a lot of people got on that.
Let me see here. Just some books from like 2012. Looks like he hasn't written anything in 2014. Is he still alive?
Well, look at this. They Chris Bookish called it. They just announced a new Dragonlance novel.
Well, here we go, man.
It might be time.
It might be time. All I know is the artwork on the cover is like it reminds me of those old D&D books. I love that. I love that 80s sort of like I don't know what it is, that 80s animation. And the older, once you get a little older, that like 70s sort of like storybook animation. I don't know what it is about it.
Yeah, we went through a weird time where it became acceptable just to put the book's title in big text on a book, and I hate that.
Have you ever seen the animated Lord of the Rings? The old school animated Lord of the Rings.
No, but I own it, and I've been waiting for like a rainy day to watch it.
I've
heard it's awesome.
First of all, there's a scene where Bilbo in The Hobbit. There's a scene, and you can literally watch them both, like they go together. In The Hobbit, when they're waiting for the when they're with the oh god, now I'm blanking on them. What I'm trying to remember exactly what I don't want to mess it up because everyone's giving the trolls, right? Because they can turn to stone, right? The trolls, they're not orcs, right? They're trolls,
right?
They turn to stone, whatever. Anyway, there's a part where like when Bilbo obviously gets captured by him and he's like talking to him until he's a part where he says, "Where the deuce is Gandalf?" And we were just like watching it, we're like, "Oh my god, like how old is this thing?"
Gandalf?
I was so upset that was not in the new movie. I was like, how do you leave that out, man?
I love it. Chris Bookish Children says, I thought, speaking of the author, I thought she was just a cashier. I gave her the dirtiest look when she asked if I wanted her to sign the book. I had no idea she was.
My god.
I hate to laugh because I'm sure that was traumatizing as all hell. But oh my god, that is.
But it looks cool, man. Dragonlance Chronicles. I put in type of images. I mean, look at the artwork on this thing.
So you know what would be fun? Maybe I'll do a live stream, and part of it, me, you, and Ez can be on, and maybe we'll just go over some fantasy covers. And
covers. Don't I mean they say not to judge a book by its cover, but I mean that's how I know you have to.
The only book that burned me on is I remember The Raven Tower by Ann Leckie. I thought the cover looked kind of cool. And I read the synopsis. I thought, oh, this looks sick. This sounds good. And it was like one of the worst books I read that year. Well written, but terrible story. It was like a Hamlet retelling with a rock. It was treacherous book. It's the only like really negative review I've ever done on the channel. Yeah, Chris Bookish Cauldron says horrid book.
Oh, the Dragonlance Chronicles?
No, Raven Tower by Ann Leckie. It's garbage.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I'm being very hyperbolic. It's not.
Oh, I gotcha.
Heroes of the Horn, which is your podcast, which means Ezra's posting. Bro, have you even read The Hobbit, Lord of the Ring? Wow.
Wow. Okay.
Does this guy over here even read? Right?
Do I even read? I don't read. I audiobook. So and the trolls. Well, I was just trying to say because I almost said the golems, but they're not golems because they're Gollum. Yeah,
he's a character. Okay.
Yeah. Character exactly.
If you were curious about Matt's other projects, Here's the Horn is the Wheel of Time podcast. If you'd like to subscribe, that you can click there. And also, Super Gains Bros was up in the chat earlier, and that is Sir Matt's video game podcast on YouTube. That is phenomenal. Also available where all major podcasts are located underneath the name Box Trick.
Yep.
So make sure to check those out.
It makes sense. Yeah. So there's a series. I'm just scrolling back here to look through some stuff. One I dived into a little bit. Was a little R.A. Salvatore. Are you familiar?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So he's done a lot of Magic at the Gathering. He wrote Kingdoms of Amalur.
Yep.
I mean, he's pretty well respected. From what I understood, is a lot of people feel like during the teen years of your life, he's a great intro to fantasy. I've always heard that. I don't know how well he translates to adulthood. I would love if anyone in the chat knows, I would love to know, because he's just like a name when you hear it, you're like, oh, it's probably going to be pretty decent, right? Like Kingdoms of Amalur's story is phenomenal,
really good. He did a Star Wars novelization, the episode 2 novelization, and from what I know in the fantasy world, I think his Dark Elf trilogy is what people say is the way to go with him.
I know Forgotten Realms is huge.
Okay.
Looks like there is a Drizzt game coming soon based on the second trilogy, so that's very interesting.
But maybe I'm wrong. But I thought the Dark Elf trilogy was like what everyone's like. Oh, that's his.
There's a lot of Drizzt, so there's a good shit. You know, I mean, there's a lot of Salvatore's works out there.
It is, yes,
so
it is Drizzt. Yeah,
I'm sure there's a lot of dissenting opinions on where to start and what's the best, right?
Yes, I'm sure. Yes, yeah.
So we talked a little bit about Skyrim and Game of Thrones. So I always like to throw this out there because it just blew my mind. It's kind of crazy that Skyrim was supposed to be a Game of Thrones game. A Song of Ice and Fire game, whatever. I'm going to use them interchangeably.
You can. I do all the time.
Oh, wait.
Yeah, it is crazy. It's I mean, obviously Skyrim is so great, but I mean it's disappointing, I think, that we never got that game.
Oh, it'd have been incredible. I mean, talk about another series that needs an actual good video game. Even though their action RPG was not, the story was amazing, but the gameplay was terrible. Chris Bookish Cauldron says he wrote speaking of Salvatore, says he wrote a new series a few years ago that people seem to like. Child of a Mad God? I think that was the first book. People acted like it was a step up from Drizzt. Now that intrigues me, because hearing that it's intentionally being made to kind of level up from Drizzt and maybe be more adult. I mean, I'm in. Like I said, anything that he's worked on outside of Drizzt, I've been a big fan of. I've even enjoyed some of those Magic the Gathering materials. So that's really cool. And Oron,
Oren says the Dark Elf trilogy.
I've said Auron's name different 7 times.
I think it's Oren.
Oh, you're definitely right. I'm just dumb and I can't remember.
He said he played Final Fantasy X, and that's the character's name.
Yeah, I'm just total.
Who's a sweet character, by the way, in that game. We were talking about character development. He is a totally awesome character.
There are some games out there that I really wish had
novelization.
Yeah, you know, one is Metal Gear.
There is a novelization of the original game. The story in that franchise, God, I
got pretty convoluted.
It's not. It's not. I wouldn't say it's convoluted. I'd say it's just complex. I think there's a difference. It's complex. It's a lot.
I mean, you're talking to a guy that liked Death Stranding, so I'm in.
Yeah, it's basic, but it's just there's just a lot. It's just a lot. Yes, yeah. Oren says it's definitely the Final Fantasy X one. Yeah, it is Oren.
Oh, look at that. Bend the Knee, which is Matt's A Song of Ice.
Is Zelda the best fantasy game series ever? I mean, yeah. Well, I don't know. Yeah,
are there any Zelda books, Matt?
There's manga. There's Zelda manga adaptations of almost all the games.
I don't know if they're like okay. That. I don't know if I like that, because the same story kind of is told over and over and over again.
Okay, buddy.
Oh, and whoa! Oh, there.
Is Zelda the best? It's certainly in the top 2. I would say Zelda and Final Fantasy.
I mean, my wife says it's yes.
And then I think third place would be Elder Scrolls, and then Dragon Quest. You go down the list. But yeah, I would say Zelda's probably number 1 with Final Fantasy, and I think you could probably interchange them. The problem, I guess, maybe is Zelda is pretty much all medieval, I would say, start to finish, whereas Final Fantasy does go to like steampunk and stuff like that.
You're saying a lot of names, but I don't hear you saying Big Mother Truckers. There's like one other person in the world that knows what we're talking about.
That's somebody's fantasy, yeah.
One thing, and this is really random, but you just talked about kind of like segmenting into like new worlds and different time periods. Just to put over First Law a little bit more to you. First Law is the first medieval fantasy story that I've seen where the story actually like takes you through ages. And I don't mean like fast. what I mean is by book 1 to book 9, we have transitioned from a medieval fantasy world to a industrial revolution.
Okay.
And it kind of comments on the fact of worker conditions and stuff like that. And it just shows the struggles of that transition. That's another really cool thing about the First Law world. You don't see it as much in the first trilogy, but from there on out, you see a lot of it. So that's another really unique thing about First Law. I could gush about First Law for like ever. I've actually considered making a First Law read along podcast at some point. Maybe I'll do that here on the channel.
You should. I think you should. You should. You totally. Or just do a series of videos on it.
Yeah, I would like to coordinate a read along. The one thing I don't want to do is I know a lot of people really enjoy a Discord with read alongs. I don't really have any interest in making a Discord for various reasons. Mainly the number one being time.
I don't use it. We have one for the Bend the Knee group, and nobody uses it.
I'm in 2 different ones that I really like, but having one for a read along would be very hard for me to keep up with what I have on my plate. But I will say this. So I'm reading Liveship by Robin Hobb, which is one of the best trilogies I've ever read in my entire life ever. So I'll read a chapter and like want to talk about it. Like I've almost considered vlogging some of my reading progress because there are chapters where you just oh no. Oh, you're probably right. You know what though? YouTube has shorts now on here.
It does.
And it would be a good way to interact with my audience. So Age of Madness is great. And what that is the second trilogy in the First Law universe after all the standalones, which aren't really standalones, by the way. I mean, they are, but they're not. Right. The Age of Madness is Joe Abercrombie's second trilogy that he's wrapping up this year. And I do think it's better than the first trilogy, which is saying a lot. But I think that he did a great job of following up his original work that was so beloved. So I think that's really cool. Yeah, I don't know, Matt. Like, I love what you guys do at Bend the Knee with the book club and reading a chapter a week. And I would like to figure out a way here on the channel, along with these live streams and the book reviews, to do some sort of read along, and it's something like you could partake in, right? Like if you don't want to dive in alone. I saw someone saying I'm going to struggle through Malazan. I'm like, well, maybe you don't have to.
Me. I think I'm going to struggle through Malazan. Yeah. There's a lot of different ways to do it. And then I really like how a bunch of booktubers are doing group spoiler discussions of books. No idea how they do it in the analytics, but I love them. The analytics is its own thing, man. I mean, it's different for everybody. In all honesty, it's totally different depending on what type of content you do and how you format it. And it's all different. There's a lot of people I've seen who don't even do live streams anymore because they're like, well, I just should do it on Twitch because it's killing my algorithm. And other people, it's like, man, live streams are the best thing for me.
I mean, so here's the thing. I have almost 1,800 subscribers at this point. Right. I've had anywhere between 15 to 30 people in this stream tonight. I don't care about the analytics as much. I'm not trying to make a fortune doing this. This is just something I like genuinely love doing. The day that I start worrying about, I mean, of course you want to do well, right? Like I want to grow the community because I want to meet more good people. But like if my audience stops growing tomorrow and I'm at 1,800 subs, that's fine. Like I'm going to continue to do this because the day I start doing it for the click-through rate and stuff is the day that I've lost my passion. And this is just something that's like really near and dear to my heart. Now I'm not disparaging anyone who cares about analytics or anything like that. I'm not taking some high road there. I just kind of want to put that out there because I love spoiler discussions, and me and Chris Bookish Cauldron just did one for Farseer, and it was one of the best times I've had on the channel. Because he brought some knowledge to that stream that blew my mind. I won't mention it because it's a spoiler, but he brought up a piece of the first book that I missed that was major, and a bunch of people in the chat blew up. So like talking with like, you, Matt, one of my good friends, and then being able to have like 20 people interact. This is awesome. This is what I do with this for.
Yeah. So how do we come to the conclusion that Randall Thor is Superman?
I mean, seriously though, like those are the moments that I really love because I'm just a person that's a fan, just like everybody else that's in chat. I just happen to, want to take the time to video it. That's the only difference between me and a reader, that isn't doing content. So who cares, right? But I just kind of want to put that out there because I will be doing more spoiler discussions, whether or not they do good in analytics, because they are so
well. Hey,
fun.
I'll be down if you want to do a Wheel of Time to where I'm at, or
I'm thinking about doing a Dunk and Egg series with you. That was my
I
initial idea.
I would be down.
Because it's kind of different from Bend the Knee, right? Because you guys are on the main series right now. So just bringing in kind of spoiler discussion.
I'd be down for it.
Talking about connections.
I'd be down. Guys, let us know. Leave a comment.
That's the other thing. Let me know. The comments really do take a big toll on what I create. Like I had a lot of people say, I want a Farseer spoiler discussion. Like that was one of the number one things I heard. And I said, well, I'm bringing on Chris Bookish Cauldron because he's the GOAT when it comes to Robin Hobb. So he actually also just said, Jimmy, listen to Buckkeep Radio. Great name. It's a Realm of the Utterlings read-along podcast. You can binge your live ship episodes and it might help that need to talk about this chapter now itch. Well, that's encouraging because I think Robin Hobb, it's a 16-book series that might be the best written fantasy I've ever read. So there's a really good chance that that's probably really good content. So that's exciting to hear. I did not know that. And we say, that Farseer discussion was awesome. I thought it was too. I had so much fun. And Chris says, yep, completely agree, Jimmy. I don't let the analytics dictate my content. If I did, I would have so much less fun. Like you said, you want to do well, but it's more important to have fun. Yeah, I think there's room to do both. I think there's room to do both. I just never want anyone to think like one thing I hear a lot from people is sorry, Matt, and I'm kind of going on tangent here about books.
Oh, you'd have at it. Yeah.
But I hear a lot of people say, I'm not going to review a sequel of a book because it doesn't do well in the analytics. And that's fine. That's a fine decision to make. I understand that, especially people who are trying to do this full time or have certain goals. That's awesome. I will never, ever do that. There are books that I have covered that aren't necessarily super popular that I really wanted to get out there and talk about. Emberblade, Combat Codes, Sword of Kaigen, which is becoming very popular now.
Yeah.
I'm going to review books that I have something to say about. That's just how it is. And those are the kind of discussions that I want to have on the channel. So that is the heart of the Fantasy Network, is looking for fantasy to quench my thirst for epic stories and epic characters, and then talking about it with everybody else. Because if I didn't have this interaction, that's why I love these live streams even more so than my pre-recorded videos, which I'm always going to do. But I love these the most because I just love having that back and forth. And Sir Matt here telling me Randall Thor Superman.
He is, man. I'll go ahead and say it. No,
Absolutely,
it's great. Absolutely. That's what you have to be passionate about the content. Otherwise you get burnt out. You just, trust me. I run a lot of different things, and sometimes I'll take a break because it's like I run 5 things and whatever. I'll take sort of slow down on something, and it just the way it works for me, and it seems to work, and I'm gonna keep doing it. But yeah, that's just, you have to be passionate about it. It has to be something you ultimately want to continue to go with. The whole deal. Like all I can say is, when I think about Randall Sor being Superman, I get goosebumps. Okay.
Yeah.
It's like my favorite author. Okay. R.L. Stein. All right. That's who it ultimately is, I get goosebumps.
You're 100% right. And I really like what someone said here. It said, wait, and some of the more obscure books that you review now might end up blowing up later for people who care about that. Look at John Gwynn. John Gwynn has become very popular in the booktube community, and for good reason. I think he does a lot of good things right. I really enjoyed making content for Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn. I thought that was like one of the most.
I've heard you say that. Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn.
This is what inspired George to write The Song of Ice and Fire.
Yeah, he
also
who wrote it?
Tad Williams, who has some of the best, most beautiful writing in or out of fantasy in all of fiction.
Don't Tad Williams and Robert Jordan have like a feud?
No, I don't think so.
Who does Robert Jordan kind of have
Terry
a feud
Goodkind.
with? That's okay. I was thinking.
Hi, Space Dog. How's it going? Good to see you. Crystal said, I'm just here for anything. I can't wait for you to have discussions on the other books, especially if it's in the full. Yeah, definitely going to be doing all that. Live ship, I'm going to have maybe multiple discussions on live ship because what a series to dive into. It's incredible. Chris Bookish Cauldron said, yes, those Memory, Sorrow, Thorn videos are so good. I mean, I am not someone that makes lore videos, and I felt the need to make a video about Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn because it is the biggest bridge I've ever seen between Tolkien and George R.R. Martin. Like, I figured out how we got there, and that's through Tad Williams. Hey, there's Rhythma said, I heard you were talking about Robin Hobb.
Nice.
So this is the booktuber I was talking about. Right underneath my face. That's kind of cool. I can point. First off, sweet avatar. One of the coolest animated avatars. I love it. But Rhythma has made amazing Malazan content so far. And if you're looking to get into it, you feel a little intimidated or you're not sure if you're going to enjoy it, I think she made one of the most approachable, absolutely well-articulated videos for that community. And it is the opposite of gatekeeping. Matt, you would love that. You should definitely check it out. Her channel's phenomenal. One of the most comprehensive readers and reviewers on the platform. So
I'm gonna pull it up now. Take a look. Boom, there we go. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's a pretty good point, Matt. I think you said that you might have to go.
Yeah, I might have to roll here.
So I think what I'm gonna do is we can do a little outro.
Out?
I think I'm gonna hang out for a little bit. I think I'm gonna answer some questions because we got quite a few people still watching, and I'll just kind of go back and forth in the chat. But Matt, I'd like you to tell everybody where they can find you. I know I've been talking about it this whole time.
Ooh, man, where can you find me on the internet? Wow, just about everywhere. To be entirely honest, at Super Gains Bros, just about everywhere. Again, I'd say most people probably know me from my Game of Thrones podcast that I run with Sir Ezra, who was on in your last live stream. That is Bend the Knee, a Song of Ice and Fire podcast. It's Reread podcast. Then we also do Wheel of Time. It's called Heroes of the Horn, Wheel of Time podcast. Then I run a video game podcast called Box Trick, which Jimmy's been on like the last 3 episodes. So
it's so fun.
You can certainly check that out. We've been talking about everything, man. Everything from The Legend of Zelda, Breath of the Wild to Big Mother Truckers. Okay, so you name it, it's what we're doing. But hey, thanks, man. Thanks for having me on. It's been a ton of fun. And let me give 2. I'll give my 2 final. Let me give book recommendations. Okay, for me, as I say, some people read at this level. I read at this level. If the book doesn't have green eggs and ham, I'm pretty much out. Okay, so that's the level I have to read at. So
I love it. I absolutely, Matt. I want to thank you for spending your Friday night with us.
Absolutely, man. Thanks for having me.
I'm going to stay on here and chat, but Matt is going to be leaving at this portion of the stream. Go hit him up on all the social medias. If you look in the description of the video, I actually linked all of his projects, which are quite a few. Matt is one of my favorite content creators and was a major motivator to do what I do here on the Fantasy Network. So Matt, thank you so much. I hope you have a wonderful
thanks for having me on, everybody. Thanks for everybody in the chat. It was a ton of fun. And I will see you guys next time.
The grave is no bar.
2-hour call.
Let's go. Have a good night, buddy. Beautiful. All right. Well, that was Sir Matt. I hope you all enjoyed our conversation. I want to hang out and kind of just talk to the chat and kind of talk about what I'm reading. I was going to get off, but I don't know. I'm feeling good. Matt is just an incredible guy. It's really interesting that it went from Milas to his podcast to creating Bend the Knee website to meeting him in person in Las Vegas before the pandemic to now also being a content creator and being able to collaborate with him on many of his projects. I love Heroes of the Horn. Bend the Knee, like I'm into the Song of Ice and Fire, but like Wheel of Time is one of those things where it's been like a really mixed bag, but experiencing Wheel of Time with Heroes of the Horn, because Matt hasn't read it before, and Ezra being an experienced reader, I love the dynamic, and it's made the series so much more enjoyable for me. So I really do recommend Heroes of the Horn. But we got a lot of people still here in chat. My mom is still here, which is great. But I kind of want to hear what are you all reading right now? What are you reading this weekend? Because I'm reading Liveship Trader Trilogy. I am in, I think, the first 100 or 200 pages of Ship. I think I'm on page 102 of Ship of Destiny, and I think it's the best start to any of the books in this trilogy so far, and I'm just absolutely loving it. Fantasy Babble asks, are you planning to get to William's new series soon? So much more to add to the world of Osternaard. So I don't know if soon is a good word for it, because I think I'm going to be finishing up Realm of the Elderlings, Dark Tower, and then I got some other stuff like Broken Earth trilogies on there, Red Rising, and Malazan. Or Malazan, if I want to pronounce it correctly. The answer is I will read it. I don't know if it'll be this year. It could be next year because the final book got delayed, but I will read everything that is included in Osternaard. So you don't have to worry about that. And I actually really want to make some more lore videos. So when I dive back in, there's a good chance maybe I'll do the differences between them or the characters of Osternaard. I think it'd be really cool. I basically have only read Malazan since the start of the year. I'm hyped for book 10. That's awesome. Yeah, I think that's one of the things that I kind of know that it's going to take a lot of time. I'm going to push my mic up so you guys can see my ugly mug over the chat. But that's one of those things I know, and that's why I've been trying to clear out my TBR before Malazan. So, have you spotted the character from the first trilogy in Liveship? I think so, but to not get into spoilers, I'm not going to mention it. But I have actually written down predictions that I've had throughout the trilogy, and I'll try to share them when I do the spoiler discussion. I will say not all of my theories have come true. Some have been like half true, and it's been really fun. I think Realm of the Elderlings is the first series since A Song of Ice and Fire where I feel like I can really do some theory crafting as I read, and it's so fun. I'm reading with a lot of people in Rid's Discord that just happen to be reading at the same time, and it's so fun bouncing ideas off each other. Rid says, I'm reading all of the Nebula Award nominees. So I'm currently reading Black Sun by Rebecca Romanhorse. I hope I said that right. That is a book that I've been super interested in, and I've heard mostly positive things about. And it's like every time I go to Barnes and Noble, it's always sitting there, and I'm like, I should pick it up. Maybe I should pick it up. Knowing that you're reading it, I'd like to hear your thoughts before I do. But maybe that'd be a good one to pick up. Is that a series or a standalone Rid? I actually don't know. Derek Hale says, I've read through The Shadow Rising and then stopped for a while, but hearing you both speak all one time tonight makes me want to pick it up. So that's actually where I stopped too. I actually read the first 4 books in like a couple months, and I dropped out of the series after that. Not like permanently, but I was like, I need a pause. I need a little break. Because sometimes Robert Jordan's writing can tax me a little bit. And then I had book 5 spoiled for me, unfortunately. It was an honest mistake, but it happened. And now, 9 months later, I'm back in the book 5, and I plan on reading it before the ending of this month. Derek Hall says he's currently reading Breach of Peace and The Pelican Brief. Not fancy, but I love John Grisham. I know a lot of people that really enjoy it. I'm reading Wheel of Time book 5 this weekend, about halfway through. That's awesome, Caleb. I'm going to be reading book 5 this month as well. I was 200 pages in when I paused it about 9 months ago, so that'll be cool to pick back up. I really miss a lot of the characters in the world building because, I mean, that's it. I mean, Wheel of Time is special for a reason, right? I plan on chasing, and he's talking about Malazan here, with Cradle so I can have a palate cleanser. I've heard really good things about Cradle. I've heard it's like really fun and easy to read, and Will White has gotten a lot better as it's went on as an author, which is cool. Gonna read A Long Way to a Small Angry Parent by Becky Chambers. I've never heard of that. Very interesting. Such a good Nebula list this year. That is something I need to look into. I've kind of put my head down when it comes to my TBR because I have so many prominent series that like have been around a long time that I need to get through. So like I've not been taking any more arcs, like unless I mean if Tad Williams hits me up for an arc, I'm gonna take it. But I'm kind of closed off to that because I just want to put my head down and read some of the stuff I want to get through, you know. I can't wait to see your spoiler review of a Liveship Trader trilogy. Hey, me either. I actually am going to film the first 2 book reviews for Ship of Magic and the Mad Ship this weekend, which is cool. Oh, The Black Sun is the first book in a series, so it might not be bad for me to pick that up. That way I don't have the pressure of reading a book too, because it's not even available to me, even though I've been trying to like not do ongoing series, but I think it's really important you know, to support the author on a book 1, because then you might not get a book 2. So maybe that's one I'll pick up after I hear some of your thoughts, because I trust your opinion a lot. So hope you love Becky Chambers. Love that book. Cool. Cradle is a really great as a palate cleanser for sure. I'm on book 4, I think. Yeah, and I don't think those books are very long, right? I think the Cradle series is relatively short. And I've heard some comparisons to Avatar: The Last Airbender, and I know people really, really enjoy that. That's like one of my wife's favorite shows. But yeah, I'm reading Liveship, and I'm just now, I haven't even started yet, but I'm starting book 4 of The Dark Tower, and I can't tell you how much I'm enjoying both of these series. Like this year has been so ridiculous for me. I went Memory, Sorrow, Thorn. Now I'm in the Realm of the Elderlings, and I'm reading Dark Tower. And like 3 of the, like, I don't know which one's the best out of all of them. Like they're so good. I think it's going to be Realm of the Elderlings. I'm pretty sure. But like, I have such a special place in my heart for all 3 of these series already. And not having finished Dark Tower, Realm of the Elderlings, I can already tell that it's going to be like my top 5 ever. Dark Tower. Wow. Not what I was expecting at all. I did not expect a portal fantasy. The Gunslinger is such a weird book because like it fits with the rest of the books, at least that I've read of the first 3, but like it's such a it's not the same. It's just not, like, it does fit because it has the characters and whatever, and a lot of the lore is staying in there and the main quest, but it's just such a different tone and theme from what book 2 and 3 introduce. It's interesting. Stuart Carver, hey, good to see you, Stuart. Says not fantasy, but I've just finished The Count of Monte Cristo. Cool. It's amazing. Fantasy like tone with a huge cast and awesome setting with a time period. Best revenge tale ever. I've actually really wanted to read that. They had like the fancy copy at Barnes and Noble, and I have a gift card. So I feel like that might be something I pick up. Only a couple years ago, as I picked reading back up, so I feel blessed for choice. TBR gets longer and longer every day. Yeah, there's no shortage of good things to read. And I've become a little bit more selective with what I put on, but I'm actually really excited for like when I get through Malazan, I finish Wheel of Time, and I have like the heavy hitters out of my list to like really explore. That's why I'm sure most of you know Patrick Reeds from Goodreads, who has a booktube channel, Patrick Leo. He's just such a tremendous reviewer, but he's like not afraid to take a risk and read a book from an unknown author if he thinks the cover's cool or the synopsis sounds great. And that's like an attitude I really want to adopt, hopefully in 2022, is where like I just take shots in the dark and see what happens. I think that's going to be a lot of fun, and to be in the middle of a couple ongoing series could be really cool. So Abercrombie's Stanley Revenge story must have been inspired by this. I wouldn't be surprised, because Abercrombie say one thing for Joe Abercrombie, say that he wears his influences on his sleeve. I can make a whole video about Joe Abercrombie's influences for First Law and how they shine through. It's something that I've listened to him in interviews before, and I love that. I love when an author wears their influences on their sleeve. George R. R. Martin does that. Stephen King does that, and I really like it. Stuart Carver says Malazan makes my head hurt. I've heard that from some people, but I've also heard some people say it's not so bad. I'm very interested to see how my experience goes. Petrick has exposed me to so many books. Yeah, without Petrick, I would have probably never read Malice. That's the reason why I started Faithful and the Fallen. Some other people too, but mainly Petrick. Petrick has just done a lot for a lot for the community and spreading the word about some great fantasy books, and I trust his opinion very much. Rid says, I need to finish Memories of Ice. Malazan is definitely something that's a big block on my TBR. Yeah, that's kind of how I feel. And then sometimes I hear people say, you can read a book at a time and they're so separated, and it's not Malazan's not like a congruent story. So like, I mean, it is. I'm sorry, it is. But like, it's not like Wheel of Time. Like, you read The Great Hunt Out of the World, you're still with the same characters. So like that piece of me is like, maybe I could read one book a month and mix it in with other stuff. But I've had other people tell me that that's not a good idea. And it's just a big undertaking, which is fine. But I could see if my mood changed, right? And I wasn't looking for that big, expansive read that's challenging. I could get overwhelmed pretty easily. Yes, Petrick is the best. I'll read anything he recommends. Yeah. Petrick does hate the Wheel of Time, though, which I find to be kind of funny. I think me and him had a lot of similar criticisms with the first 4 books. He stopped after book 4. I think I'm a little bit more forgiving, but I always am. I like to like things. That's what I've always told people. So get so ready to get to Shadow of the Gods by John Gwen. I'm telling you, I received that advanced reader copy. If you haven't seen my review for Shadow of the Gods by John Gwen, it's here on the channel, spoiler free. Got an advanced reader copy. It's awesome. I absolutely loved it. I love there's 2 female protagonists that I found just to be very fun to read. I thought they were really well done, and it's a great point if you haven't read John Gwen to jump in. And it might be his best. It's not his best book, I don't think, because like his endings to his series have been so great, but it's his best book 1 for sure, in my opinion. Like Mouse is really good and Time of Dread's really good, but they don't compare to Shadow of the Gods, in my opinion. And he told it such a different story. It was really good. It's Norse inspired, Viking inspired, so a lot of people can get behind that. Another good series I read right before Malazan, Red Rising. Red Rising is like really high on my list for things I want to read this year, and I might try to sneak in the first trilogy before I read Malazan. It's something Alex Nevaez, I hope I said his last name right, but Alex Nevaez Fancy Book Talk on Twitter. He has a YouTube channel that's phenomenal. He loves Red Rising, has recommended it to me multiple times. Have you read the Powder Mage books by Brian McClellan? No, I have not. I own book 1, and I know that Powder Mage is being adapted for television. So I have a new keen interest in that. I know he was a student of Brandon Sanderson, I've heard some good things, I've heard some bad things, but mostly positive. It's a series I could see sneaking in because the books aren't terribly long, maybe towards the end of the year if it works out. So I have to mainline series where I start to get the universe all mixed up in my head. I've actually had like that's actually so funny you say that because I'm a serial reader. I usually read one thing at a time, but I've been reading Realm of the Elderlings and Dark Tower, and I've actually got some things kind of mixed up, like just a really weird like word or overlap of something, and it's like, oh my god, wait, that's not. This isn't Dark Tower. Are they connected? Is Robin Hobb and Stephen King are they in cahoots? Which they're not. Spoiler. But yeah, I'm trying not to miss anything here. Sorry to ask. I really want to read a detective series. Any recommendations? I actually don't have any recommendations. I do know, I think Mistborn 2, Era 2, books 4, 5, 6, I believe are detective, but I can't speak to them because I haven't read them because I didn't really like Mistborn Era 1, so I didn't continue on. If anyone in the chat can give Oscar some recommendations for detective series, please feel free. I'd like to hear some myself. I've heard book 2 is at the moment called Dead Gods Rising. Yeah, that's what I've heard as well. That's for Zhang Wen's Bloodsworn Saga trilogy. Pretty cool. I also play video games. Maybe it's just too many story settings at once for me. Yeah, I find myself, so like I read a lot, right? I try to read 100 pages a day at least. Sometimes it's 75, just depends on the author. But I find my capacity to play video games and to do other things to be slightly diminished, but not in a bad way. Like I don't watch a lot of television, and I've kind of just been turned off games for the last few years, mainly because I taught myself how to program and to code. And when I did that a few years back, what I did was I cut video games out of my life. This is actually kind of interesting. I guess I could share this. So I cut video games out of my life because I realized how much time I was spending on them. And I said, well, I put 1,000 hours into this game. I could have learned any computer language and tripled my salary. So I taught myself how to code, and with that time, and I just stopped playing video games. And it worked out. I got a job. I'm a software developer now, but now I don't have to learn how to code all of my free time, right? So it opened up 2-3 hours a day. And so instead of going back and playing video games, it just didn't feel as fulfilling. I started reading. I started reading A Song of Ice and Fire again, and I got more and more into that series than I already was. And then that's kind of where I catapulted myself into, being a full-time reader, I guess you could say, with how much time I actually spend reading. Sometimes it does feel like a part-time job, but I love it. That's definitely not a complaint or anything like that. So I adore reading. It's a great time for me to spend my free time. So here we go, Oscar. Harry Hole is a good detective series, Scandinavian noir type. That sounds fascinating. Chris Bookish Cauldron, who is an encyclopedia of books, says, for detective series, I'm currently listening to the first Alex Verus book, and I like it a lot. It's very similar to Dresden, but I like it better so far. Dresden counts as detective. Also, James Patterson has a lot of detective books. I think Dresden does count. I haven't read it, but based on what I know, I feel like it counts. Ooh, second Harry Hole recommendation. Was obsessed with those books in high school. Nemesis is like the best thriller mystery I've ever read. That is high praise. So yeah, there's a lot of detective books out there, I guess, that people could get excited about, which is cool. Really, really cool. I definitely just want to read fantasy and some sci-fi, obviously. I actually really, really like sci-fi. I just feel like I have so much more fantasy to get through, and it's definitely the genre I lean into the most. If you can give me a good fantasy detective series, I might be able to squeeze her in there, and at least the early Dresden books do. Yeah, Dresden's like a series I'll probably try. There's just like a lot of people who cover it, and I've heard a lot about the series. I've had some stuff spoiled for me, so I just like I really do want to give it a shot, but I don't know if it's going to be my cup of tea. We'll see. I mean, I'm not going to judge it before I read it. So, also, we talked about The Witcher. Let me grab this. I got this stupid. Here, let me see. I got this stupid figurine talking about The Witcher. I got to show it to somebody, right? I got this massive thing. I ordered this and I didn't realize how big it is. But look, it's bigger than my head. So it doesn't like fit on my shelves, and it's so nice though. I mean, like you can see it has extraordinary detail. But what am I supposed to do with this thing? So now it just sits on my desk and my cat knocks it over constantly. It's awful. I should give it away at some point. Do a raffle or something. Nah, I probably won't. I like it a lot. It's just really, really big. Game of Thrones like a detective book with Ned as an even slower than normal Columbo. It's actually really funny. Also, the first book of The Expanse is like a detective noir in space, which is really fascinating because then it balloons into a space opera. I'm all caught up on the show, but I've only read book 1 of The Expanse, and it was awesome. I love Daniel Abraham and Ty Frank's writing a lot. Mostly Daniel Abraham. Dresden books are great. The portrayal of women is kind of terrible in it, though. I've heard that. I've heard it's fairly, controversial when it comes to its depiction of women. But going back to the Expanse, I actually think I'm going to do like a Leviathan Wakes book 1 spoiler discussion for the Expanse because it's really, really good. And then maybe talk about the TV show with Sandra Gibbons, who's a booktuber who like loves the Expanse. I think it's her favorite series. I might also talk to Andy Smith if he's willing to, because I know I think he's read all the books at this point. But I'll probably scope it just to book 1 since that's what I have read. Let's see. I need to read the Expanse. Maybe I'll do after Cradle. Expanse is actually, so there's like a lot going on, but it's a very easy read. Daniel Abraham's writing is extraordinarily approachable. I actually think he like took a lot of the best parts of George R.R. Martin's writing because he studied underneath him, and so did Ty Franck. But I think they were able to make it a lot more approachable than sometimes George can be. I find George's writing to be beautiful. I love George's writing. I know a lot of people maybe don't feel that way. But if you've ever felt like it was a little too complex or, convoluted, I think Daniel Abraham's like a really good balance to that. Are you going to drop a bookshelf tour or just keep teasing us with those beautiful shelves in the background of your live streams? So I've had a book. Yes, I'm going to be doing a bookshelf tour. I just never thought anyone cared. But I have a bunch of stuff over there, memorabilia I can show off. And my Germ shelf is what I call all that stuff's George R. R. Martin over there in the corner. But yes, I will be doing a bookshelf tour. I hear they're quite popular. So the Brothers Gwen recently said that Papa Gwen is already on book 3 of the new series. That man is a machine. I also want a bookshelf tour, memorabilia tour. Well, I have 3 Game of Thrones swords. I have Ice, Longclaw, and Needle. So I'll have to pull those out. Maybe me and my wife will sword fight on camera. I'll have my cats hold the camera or some shit. Would you recommend Dagger or Coin or Expanse as first Abraham? So I would recommend Dagger and Coin because it's actually only written by Daniel Abraham, where the Expanse is written by Daniel Abraham and Ty Franck. I think the Expanse is better. No, that's not fair. The Expanse is going to be more widely liked than Dagger and Coin because of the nature of Dagger and Coin's story. But I can't speak to all of the Expanse. The TV show doesn't count, right? I'm caught up on that, but it doesn't count for the books. I think the Dagger and Coin, the one thing it does exceptionally well that I've heard the Expanse struggles with is that every entry of the Dagger and Coin is great. It's great baseline, and then it gets like almost damn near perfect in some of the spots. Whereas I heard the Expanse does have some entries that kind of miss, and I have heard that maybe Ty Franck is not as strong as Daniel Abraham. I don't know if that's true, so I don't want to talk too much crap on Ty Franck. I love that they call him Papa Gwen. I think I told them in a comment recently that their dad was the effing man. I care a lot. Yeah, well, you'll get your bookshelf tour, I promise. I mean, I own them all. I might as well show them off. So stick them with the pointy end. That's my in-laws just finally watched Game of Thrones, the show, and I showed like before they come down here, like my in-laws would be like, "What's all this stuff?" And now that they've watched the show, it has all new meaning. Like my in-laws want to see the maps, right? They want to see the swords. So it was kind of cool that a bunch of things that probably seemed worthless to them before is now a really good point of discussion. So did you ever read Name of the Wind? Maybe one day Sanderson will write book 3. So I have not read that, mainly because it's not finished and there's like, all that controversy. I'm not opposed to reading unfinished series, but like A Song of Ice and Fire breaks my heart enough. And I'm okay with that, by the way. I not really interested in debating whether George owes us stuff or not. It's not a conversation I'm really into having. But with that said, I don't know if I want to put myself through the waiting game with another series. I will eventually read it. It's going to happen. Even if he never finished it, I will eventually read it. It's just really far back on my TBR at this point. And I can tell with his writing and the story and the way, just things I've heard, I can tell I'm going to be a massive Kingskiller Chronicle fan. So I'm just kind of waiting, and maybe it'll be something I'll just pick it off off the shelf one day when I'm in a slump. I have both books back there, so I would really like to get to that in the near future. Maybe we'll see. It's really, there's no plans for it, I should say. Just one day. Maybe I'll do that instead. I don't know. I got to meet Daniel Abraham and Ty Franck at Gen Con a few years ago, and they were the nicest, most gracious of the famous authors I've gotten to meet. They're amazing people on Twitter. I think they stand for a lot of good causes, and they're not afraid to state them, even if it's unpopular to people. I actually really enjoy their Twitter accounts. So you went to Gen Con. So Indianapolis hosts Gen Con, and I've been to Indianapolis quite a few times. Have you ever had Elmo's Steakhouse or Elmo, whatever it is, Elmo's? It's so good. I got to do that on a business trip once, and it was amazing. I'd like to go to Gen Con, by the way. Maybe I'll meet up with Chris Bookish Cauldron. We'll do a vlog. It'd be cool. That's kind of how I am about Kingskiller Chronicles. Yeah, and to be clear, like, I'm not saying people shouldn't read it, by the way. I think people should read it if they want to. It's just I have so many other things that I want to get through that are finished or definitely going to be finished. And Kingskiller is like one of those rabbit holes where, like, I'm going to read it and then probably want to make like 10 videos on it, and I want to reread it. Like, I already want to reread Farseer trilogy by Robin Hobb, right? And like, I'm just now in the third book of Liveship, which is the second trilogy in Realm of the Elderling. So I'm already wanting to reread that, right? There is a high probability that I will do some sort of read along for the Realm of the Elderlings on this channel in the next year or two. Very, very realistic. I want to get through it first and review them all and do spoiler discussions, and then maybe I'll host an effort to get through it, because I think more people need to read Realm of the Elderlings. I think it's so far, even with just being into the second trilogy, it's one of the best pieces of fantasy ever. So I've had free samples of St. Elmo's when I go to the Symphony Orchestra downtown. That's awesome. Yeah, I had a steak there. It was not on my dime. It was on my company's dime. And woo, St. Elmo's, if you're ever in Indianapolis, really good. Really good, especially if your boss is paying. Yeah, man, we're going to have cons back. It's crazy. It's crazy. I'll definitely be doing Ice and Fire Con in Ohio. I'm sure they're going to bring back the Game of Thrones Con once the new shows launch. I'll go to those. So maybe I'll be able to meet some of you guys and gals at those events. That'd be really cool. Who says guys and gals? What am I, 80? God, I'm such a pseudo boomer. But not really. I promise. Oh, Derek, a man after my own literary heart. Have you read any of Tad Williams' standalone books? Super funny. So the review I'm releasing in 2 days on this Sunday. I usually release books Sunday or Monday. I released last week on Friday. Anyways, the review this week is The War of the Flowers by Tad Williams, which is a Tad Williams standalone that I read with Chris Bookish Cauldron and Andy Smith. I think it's one of the best, if not the best, standalone I've ever read in the fantasy genre, and that review will be coming. It's a rave review, and I have a lot of cool things to say about that. It will be spoiler free, so you can check that out. And I think it's a perfect starting spot for people who want to get into Tad Williams but are a little intimidated by Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn's length, and also just it's a little bit more obtuse. The War of the Flowers is a great introduction to Tad Williams, in my opinion. Jordan Con will be massive whenever the next one is. That's true. Yeah, Jordan Con would probably be where I see most people, because I think that is, I think you're right. I think it's going to absolutely blow up with the television show, which, I hope to be a success. But even then, it's still just big, right? So it can only get bigger from this point. And I would definitely go to Jordan Con and meet all of you. That'd be cool. Have you read Tagana? That's the standalone I'm always hearing about every fantasy fan needing to read. So Guy Gavriel K is I will fit a Guy Gavriel K book in either this year or early next year, because I've just heard so many things about him being the spiritual successor to Tolkien and just being on a different level than other people when it comes to writing. I've heard good and bad things about Tagana and some of his other stuff. I think Patrick loved Tagana and then read his Lions of something duology and like DNF'd it and said it was one of the worst books he'd ever read, which is so bizarre to get such a, contrast between two reviews. So never met a fantasy author, but John Gwynn, my best bet. I think he lives a 2-hour drive from me. So roll on probably next year. Yeah, that'd be cool, huh? Like, John Gwynn's the only author I've ever considered having on the channel. mainly because I feel really safe in the fact that I'm, able to have a good conversation with him. I feel like I understood a lot of his intent in his books, and I've had a couple conversations with John before, and I think we have pretty good rapport and a pretty good chemistry. I thought about bringing him on, but I get really nervous about the things like that. So I don't know. We'll have to see. We'll have to see. Big content warning for incest for any potential Tagana readers. I was not prepared. Well, Chris, I love A Song of Ice and Fire, so incest is rampant in the fantasy genre. But good to know. Good to know. For sure. Now I really want to do a book tour, bookshelf tour. I'm not going to do one right now because it's the webcam, but I'm going to have to like watch somebody else's and figure out how they did it. Like, do I need to put the camera on a tripod? Do I have my wife film? These are the semantics I have to figure out if I'm going to do a bookshelf tour soon. Maybe I'll put that video out like next weekend or something. I have so many reviews to film. I have to do Ship of Magic because I have War of the Flowers already filmed and I have to edit it tomorrow. And then I will be reviewing Eyes of the Dragon by Stephen King. I already filmed that. But then I have to film Ship of Magic, The Mad Ship, Dark Tower 1, 2, and 3. So I have 5 reviews to film. Plus, by that time, I'll have to film the wrap up for this month and then the TBR for May and a bookshelf tour. So there's a lot of content coming out. There's a chance that some weeks I'm going to be posting, like I'm already going to have it twice because I'm going to try to do 1 live stream a week. Which is just kind of like just me hanging out with you all in my community and kind of seeing what people are reading. I think it's fun. I'll keep doing this as long as people keep showing up. I would love for this to be a mainstay on the channel weekly when I'm available every Friday at, I probably start a little bit earlier. The reason why we started at 7:30 tonight is because Matt actually lives on the West Coast. I live on the East Coast. So we had a little bit of a later start time, but it does seem like we've picked up, like we had about 20 to 30 people and now it seems we're back to that. So maybe this is a fine time to stream, but I would like to be doing this every Friday and just kind of chill, hang out, and talk about what we're reading, what I'm reading, and kind of update you on what I'm thinking, because there's a lot of times where like I have thoughts about what I'm reading and I want to share it. So also I'll probably keep having guests on and do spoiler discussions and whatnot. But my point is I will be doing like a live stream and then a review every week. But there's a chance that here in the next few weeks, I might do a couple weeks where there's 2 reviews just to get not too much of a backlog. So Fantasy Battle says Guy Gavroche is so good. Tagana is his most famous works, but there are some weird things in there. Prefer his other works. Interesting. Yeah, I've actually heard some other people say that who have really read like all of his stuff. They said Tagana's good, but, and then they usually list something else. So heard mixed things about the Fiona Narver. I butchered that. I'm sorry. Tapestry 2, but I know that's another praised one. He has a lot of praised work. So Stuart Carter says, well, it's 3 a.m. in the UK. Just saying, I know. I really try to like, I have a lot of viewers that are like half my viewers are not in the United States. So I'm trying to like encompass all time zones. That's why when me and Chris did our Farseer spoiler discussion, I actually did it at like 2 p.m. Eastern. So I could have people who are in Finland and the UK and anywhere else. Right. And then I got my friend Christian who lives in Australia and he's basically like 12 hours, something like that. It's pretty wide, right? Like right now he's in his morning and he was in here earlier, but it's hard to pick a good time. That's why I put these on the channel as VODs, which the cool thing is that you can see the chat, because like right now, I'm just interacting with you all. Watching me and Matt talk is probably fine, but whenever it breaks down to just me, I'm sure people want to see what I'm interacting with, which is cool that I can do this, right? Put stuff on. Crystal says, yes, please, for a bookshelf tour eventually. Yeah, it's going to happen sooner rather than later. I like the books I have, and I think that they look cool. So I guess we might as well do it eventually, right? I think this is fun. I really, really enjoy kind of hanging out on a Friday. I wish I would have done this maybe a little bit earlier in my booktube existence. So yeah, so I'll be reading Ship of Destiny. I don't think I'll get that finished this week because it's a big boy, and then Wizard and Glass. That's another one that and I'm doing that one on pretty much all audio, so that's probably not gonna be done to the end of the month. But Ship of Destiny will probably take me into early next week, not this coming week, but the week after. And then I'm gonna read Fires of Heaven, book 5 in Wheel of Time, and then I'm gonna fit in Mort by Terry Pratchett, which is super exciting. And then there's one other book that I wanted to maybe. I don't think I'll have time because Fires of Heaven's like 900 pages. So, but I do want to say Liveship is going tremendously. I have a lot of thoughts about how it compares to Farseer. I don't know if I have popular opinions about that, but we will see. We'll see. I will say this. Liveship overall, I feel like it's going to end up being better than Farseer because Assassin's Quest wasn't my favorite of the three, and I think ending a trilogy or whatever is like really important. Like I think the ending needs to be good. You could still have a great piece of work with like an okay ending. I think that I'm weird like that. I can accept a nonchalant ending, or rather a not great ending. But if Liveship delivers with all three books being like 10 out of 10, then I probably have to get the nod to Liveship. But I miss my boy Fitz. I really do. Especially at the spoiler discussion with Chris this past week, last weekend. You know, it just got me in the mood to wanna see Fitz and see what Bjorch is up to. Like, come on, you know, how can you not? I really love the revelations about the world magic system and life trilogy. Yeah, so much that we don't experience right from Fitz's single point of view gets explored through multiple POVs. And how cool is that contrast between Farseer and Liveship? I mean, Robin Hobb switched her writing perspective and just knocked both of them out the park. I will say, I do like her first person perspective writing more than her third, but her third person perspective writing is still perfect. So I'm just saying, it's weird because I'm usually a third person perspective person, but she's really turned me around on first person. How fast have you gone through Liveships? You read like a madman. So funny you say that because I kind of feel like it's been taking me a long time. Like Madship felt long, and I don't mean that in a negative way, but like I was kind of like, oh man, I'm wrapping up the trilogy. I'm like, wait, this is only book 2. Like it felt kind of like a Stormlight book in that regard, where it's like, man, I've been reading the same book for a while. But I read 100 to 150 pages a day, so some days I'll even read over 200. It just depends. But let's say on average, I read 100 pages a day. So it would take me about 9 days to finish each book in Liveship, which is roughly a month, right? So Ship of Destiny was a roller coaster ride of emotions. I'm only into the first few chapters, and I can already tell it's going to be a hard hitting one. Ship of Magic started real slow for me. I remember, yeah, it's. I think there's a negative connotation with the word slow. I would say Hobb took her time to introduce the characters and to take her time to give enough attention to everyone, which there's such a large cast. And I also really like the fact that Hobb has multiple POVs that we know are main POVs, but she'll like randomly give you a POV from, you know, I can't give away anything, but she'll give you a POV chapter from a character that's been a side character this whole time, and then you get to jump in their brains, and it feels just so seamless. Like the best way to describe Robin Hobb's writing is smooth. I think her first person is amazing. She calls it the natural storytelling voice. That is so spot on. That's so spot on. I think Paragon may be one of the best characters of all time. I mean, yes, but also you could say that about Kenneth, about Wintrow, about Althea. You could say that about Etta. I mean, there's not a bad. I have one character, but I'll talk about it in my review. But I don't think there's a bad. There's no bad characters in Liveships. They are all like A- or better. I really believe that. It's the yeah. Brash is the man, and so complex at the same time. What a story! And I'm only starting book 3, but this is the first series since Song of Ice and Fire where I feel like every single POV is like a click for me. And also, I've been just coming up with theories. Like, let me show you all something. So when I read, I don't take like extensive notes usually. I just write down some stuff, right? My Ship of Magic notes. Look, I mean, I think you all can see this, right? Like, I never look how many. Like, those are all bullet points. Those aren't like, you know. I mean, I have a lot of thoughts, and I think that you can pull a lot from this. Like, this is an easy reread. You have to reread Liveships. I feel there's just way too much good quality stuff here to not give it a chance to reread it. So I think it's really cool. I think it's a series that is going to be a lot of fun to make content for it and a lot of more fun to discuss with multiple people. So Derek L says, you were going to love Name the Rufus first person narrative storytelling is so great. Yeah, I've really turned around on first person perspective. In fact, I would say if I were ever to write a book now, I feel like I might even write it from a first person perspective. Like that's just totally changed the game. Hob has really switched me on that. I've read Liveship 3 times. I still like I need to read it a fourth time, pick up everything. That is the beauty. I know some people get like here's the thing. Like I read Farseer, right? And I absolutely missed a massive moment that Chris pointed out in the spoiler discussion. I might make a video talking about that moment in the live stream to make sure everybody else has gotten it, because I think it's a huge moment in Farseer and it's just like a big character moment for Fitz. I missed it totally, but I still got the impact of the story. But like now knowing that, and I would have caught it probably on a reread, it would have enhanced my experience so much to where it's like you're getting value out of your time. And I think that's like the biggest compliment you can give to an author and the biggest prize an author can give to us, which again is why I really like A Song of Ice and Fire. And Hob is just really filling that void up for me, because my channel is all about finding books that I can love just as much as A Song of Ice and Fire. And there's been stuff I love for what it is, but nothing's given me that exact feeling, except for Realm of the Elderlings. It's really filling that void. It's tremendous. I love it. I never take notes, but Malazan is testing my resolve. Yeah, so mine are just like to make sure I remember like small things that I really enjoyed so I can point out to the reader, because like when you're doing a spoiler for your review, which is what I do most of the times, which I'm going to start doing a little bit of spoilers at the end and I'll just warn people, but like spoiler free reviews, I don't ever want to be so vague where you can't tell what book I'm talking about. Like I want to be very implicit about what I'm discussing and what book it is. So I like to take just like little bullet point things like, oh, I really like the way that this character was perceived through this action or this conflict or something like that, right? So that is how I make sure that I have like specific examples of things I like that the writer did. I think that's like really important. And it's helped me also be, I think, a little bit more on topic in my reviews. I haven't taken notes on Malazan, but I do listen to 10 Very Big Books, which helped me early on. Yeah, that's the podcast I've actually considered listening to as I enter Malazan, hopefully this summer. What happens scene? Yeah, in Dark Tower, I've actually found a blog on, I think it was on Tor, because some Dark Tower is so weird. I love it. I absolutely love it. It's so Stephen King. But there's times where I'm like, what happened here? Like, did I miss something? And I seek out guides like that. But you got to be careful because you don't want to spoil anything. Like I asked Chris Bookish Cauldron all my questions and Rid about Realm of the Elderlings, because I don't want to get spoiled on anything. You can't Google anything nowadays because Google gives you like a paragraph and you read it and it like spoils the whole series. So yeah, Malazan's going to be a good one. I think at the very least, it'll be an experience that I'll always remember. And I like the fact that even though Malazan is not for everyone, I like that it seems to be very, very unique. And it's its own thing, right? Like no one says, oh, Malazan's just this, or like that. Like Malazan is a pillar, right? Whether or not you like it, it's like a pillar of fantasy. And then you have like Wheel of Time, Lord of the Rings, Stormlight, Song of Ice and Fire, Realm of the Elder. Like it's a major player. So that's one of the things I'm really excited about for Malazan, is that at least it stands out on its own. It's already past 10. This is crazy. I've spoiled myself inadvertently a lot. I fly too close to the sun sometimes is all. You know, I have a problem and I've gotten better at it. I always have to know what's going on instead of just like read and find out. And not like I want to spoil for myself, but I'm like, oh, I feel like that was important. Did I miss something? And then I Google it and it turns out I didn't miss anything. I just hadn't read far enough. I've gotten better at it because I've spoiled myself on stuff because of that. Specifically in Stormlight Archive, it happened to me, and Wheel of Time. So I've just become a lot more comfortable not knowing what's going on. And sometimes I won't even ask questions to my friends that have read the books until I finish the book. And I think that's probably going to help me out when I try to tackle Malazan. I think when I try to read Gardens of the Moon, I'm going to try to rope in Chris to read it with me. So I have someone to ping stuff off of and see how it goes. Well, I think I've come to a point in the stream where Oh, wait, let's see. I've also found some read-throughs will catch stuff that an ordinary reader might miss, which is double-edged sword. Sometimes that's good, and other times you want the natural. The thing I like about the Stephen King one is that they actually like tell you the inspiration that King had for certain scenes. Because I don't know all the literary references that King makes. King is very well read, you can tell, and he wears his influences on his sleeve. There's a part where a character walks into a bookstore and the characters' names in the bookstore are actually like kind of call outs and nods to our authors that I had never heard of. So it's kind of cool getting that extra context, I think. But it's about 10:15 here on the East Coast, and I could do this all night, but I think I am going to call it a day or a stream or a night or whatever you want. But I really want to thank you all for being here with me on a Friday night. I can't imagine a better Friday night than just hanging around talking fantasy with, my good friend Matt or anybody really. And then also being able to chat back and forth with you all. I mean, I absolutely love this. This is awesome. This is my social life. So I really appreciate you all spending your Friday night with me. And I hope it was as fun for you as it was for me. This is something I'm going to keep doing. So next Friday, I will be doing another live stream. I don't know if it'll be at 7:30, but it'll be after work. I say the early side started probably be like 6. I'll announce the time. Check out the community tab. Check out my Twitter at the Flock of Ellie, where you can search Jimmy Nuts on Twitter. But absolutely reach out. Let me know what start time works for y'all. I'm definitely going to be doing this every Friday that I can, as long as I don't have any pre-existing plans. So from now on, Chatting with Nuts will be an ongoing series every Friday. So I really, really look forward to continuing this. Hey man, it was a real treat. Pleasure was all mine. Okay. Thank you for the stream that kept me entertained while I did data processing for work. I feel that. So, I'm glad. I hope to have another guest on next week, and maybe I'll have a little bit more of a scope conversation. And then afterwards, always go into talking with you all about what you're reading and what you're thinking and any questions you might have for me to get to know me a little bit better. Also, I will be doing a redo of all my Goodreads ratings because they're all messed up from like back last year when I didn't know what I was doing. So I will be re-ranking or re-rating everything I have on Goodreads. So that'll be a fun live stream, and I want to go over some community polls. So just keep an eye on the community tab. Hey, and tell a friend about the channel. Tell them about Chatting with Nuts on Friday nights and how it's a great time to spend your Friday evening if you're into fantasy. Because I would like to build the community up just a little bit more. So make sure to hit like on this as well. You can hit the like on the live stream. And if you haven't subbed, which I'm sure you have, go ahead and hit subscribe, all the good YouTube stuff. Will these be VODs? Yes. All of this stuff will stay on the channel. I'll leave it all on here. And all that good stuff. So I hope you have a wonderful night. And again, thank you so much. Look out for my The War of the Flowers review this Sunday by Tad Williams. I will have that no spoiler review out, and I hope that you enjoy it and you'll check it out and share it with all your friends. But until I see you this Sunday for that review, I hope you're good. I hope you have a wonderful weekend. And remember to always keep turning the page.